Hey, how's it going everyone? So I've put together my Selenium Python tutorial videos using the SeleniumBase Framework in this 3-hour course. We will cover quite a bit from basic installation to setting up framework to running tests on Jenkins. Now we will deep dive into each topic shortly, but before we get there, I just want to take a couple minutes out to let you know that I'm doing a race to 5k subscribers challenge. And we are not that far off from 5k subscribers, and I know we can get there soon. So if you guys are watching the videos and you enjoy the content I'm putting out, please make sure to subscribe, as that will help grow this channel a lot and allow me to continue posting new content out for you all. Alright, so as part of Race to 5k, I will be doing another giveaway. This time I will be giving out $50 USD as well as my WebDriver IO course for free once I hit 5,000 subscribers. You can use the money to buy more courses or get your grandmom a Christmas gift. It's totally your choice. So to be part of the giveaway, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also join my mailing list, as that's where I will be picking random winners for the giveaway. One last thing, you can also follow me on Twitter, as I am putting out lots of tips and tricks related to testing and automation that might be of interest to you guys. Alright, that's it from my side guys, let's get started. Hello and welcome to another test automation series. This time we will be learning Selenium web automation using Python. Now let's talk about why Python. So the answer is simple. Python is becoming one of the most popular and in-demand programming languages. As per the survey done by Stack Overflow in 2020, Python ranks number 4 as the most popular technologies right after JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and SQL. By the way, if you guys are interested in JavaScript, I already have front-end and back-end test automation video series out on that, which you should check it out in my channel. I will also add the link for those in the description below. But for all the Python lovers, stick around to check out all the awesome things we will be covering in this series. So coming back to the survey, Python ranks number 1 as the most wanted programming language, and that's no surprise to me, as Python is also one of the top beginner-friendly programming languages. And you will see that once we start writing code in Python. So let's talk about what we will be covering in this series. We will start off with the introduction, which is basically this video. Here we will learn about a framework called SeleniumBase, which is a web automation framework built with Python, PyTest, and WebDriver. We will take a look at all the advantages of using SeleniumBase, and we will talk about all of that in detail shortly. After our introduction to SeleniumBase, we will begin installing all the packages and dependencies required to get SeleniumBase working with our local project. And then we will begin to write our first test using SeleniumBase and Python. Once we have our first test working, we will deep dive into the APIs of SeleniumBase to understand all the features it offers us. We will learn to work with various elements and look into setup and teardown methods. After we are a bit familiarized with the API, we will get started with setting up our test framework. We will begin with learning what page object model is and how to implement it using our existing test. Then we will learn how we can stabilize our framework by learning different wait methods that are available. From there, we will learn about error handling, reading logs, and taking screenshots on test failures, and then eventually generating test reports from all of that. Finally, we will move on to learning different ways on how we can run a test. We will look into cross-browser testing and parallel testing to speed up our existing test runtime. And at the end, we will integrate all of that with our CI/CD tool and run our test on Jenkins. So there's quite a bit we will be covering in this series. I hope you guys are all excited to begin your next learning journey with me. As for the prerequisite for this series, you will need to have some basic familiarity with Python or any programming languages, as well as some basic familiarity with web automation would be helpful too. Rest we will be covering in this series. Now that you know what we will be covering in this series, let's talk about what is SeleniumBase and why we will be using that for this series. So SeleniumBase was built by Michael Mintz, which is one of the test automation expert in the industry. So the framework is built with Python, PyTest, which is an extremely popular unit testing framework, and WebDriver. Since it's an entire framework, it comes with some great features such as all the capabilities of PyTest, unit test, and nodes for test discovery and running. It has inbuilt capabilities of smart wait methods to make your test reliable. It includes some great logging tools for dashboard, reporting, as well as it takes screenshots. You can also run your tests in headless mode or even run your tests in parallel to optimize your runtime, as well as some great other features that you can read about over here. So when you get started with writing your UI test, your only job is to focus on writing test. Rest all the setup and configuration, SeleniumBase will take care for us. So basically you don't have to reinvent the wheel again since this framework has already done that for you. Alright, that's pretty much it for this video guys. In the next one, we will get started with writing our first test using SeleniumBase. Now I would really appreciate if you guys could support my work. You can do that in few ways. The easiest is by subscribing to my channel and liking and sharing my videos. And you can also go to automationbro.com and subscribe to my mailing list so that you get access to all my blog posts as well as the latest updates. And if you have the financial means, you can also support me via the Buy Me a Coffee website. I will add the links for all of that in the description below. That's it for this video guys. I will see you in the next one. Hey, welcome back guys. Let's take a look at what we will be covering in this video. First off, we'll ensure if you have Python 3 installed in your machine. If not, you will install Python 3. Now to install Python 3, you need to go to python.org website and over there just download the latest Python version. At this moment, the latest version is 3.9.1. So for Windows or Mac machine, you can just download that. Now once you have Python downloaded and installed, you need to verify that Python is working in your machine. To do that, you can just open up your terminal and in your terminal just type in python -- version. And if you get the version number over here, which is Python in my case 3.6.5, that's the latest version I have installed. Now if you're installing obviously the latest version that's going on, it probably will be 3.9.1 or the later version that's available. So make sure you have Python 3 installed and working in your machine before you follow along with the next steps. Now let's take a look at what else we need to do. So we will set up our project. To set up a project, we will first create a new project in PyCharm. Now either you can use PyCharm or any other code editor that you want. In my case, I'm going to be using PyCharm. Once we open up and create a new project in PyCharm, we're going to set up our virtual environment. Now, if you guys are not familiar with virtual environment, it's basically an isolated space where you can install your libraries and script. So you can have multiple projects with different virtual environment and you can have different Python version as well as library installed in each of those environments. So it's always recommended to use a virtual environment when working with Python projects. So once virtual environment is set up, we will begin installing our packages. Now the very first package we will install is SeleniumBase. Now once again, if you're not familiar with SeleniumBase, it's essentially a framework that is built with Python, PyTest, and WebDriver. So we're going to be using this as our test framework. And once this is installed, we will install Chrome driver. Now Chrome driver is required to run your test in Chrome browser. If you're running your test in different browser, then you will need to install that particular driver. And we will look into working with multiple browsers later on in our videos. So let me open up PyCharm and create a new project. Alright, so I have PyCharm pulled up over here and I'm going to click on the new project button. Okay, so the very first thing over here, it's asking me for the location where I want to store my project. Now I'm going to keep the location same and under the PyCharm projects and I'm going to change the name to Selenium Python. So once you provide the location for your project, it's going to ask you for the environment that you need to use. So here I'm using the virtual environment. So I'm going to click on that. And then for the location, it's going to ask, okay, where it wants to store that. So what I'm doing is it's going to be storing under the Selenium Python project. So I'm fine with that. So it's going to be my project and underneath that, it's going to create a directory called VM. And that's a standard. So I'm going to leave it that way. And then everything else I'm going to leave same and will not change anything here. And over here, it's asking me if it needs to create a main.py welcome script. I'm going to uncheck that because I don't want that right now. And I'm going to click on the create button. Alright, so this is creating my virtual environment right now, as you can see. So once this is created and once the project is set up, we will begin with the next steps. Okay, so our project as well as our virtual environment is created now. If I click on this arrow button over here, you can see this VM, which is the virtual environment that it created for us. So it has some library as well as some scripts. These are the default that comes along when we install the virtual environment. So I'm going to close that for now. We don't have to worry about what's in there at the moment. So what I'm going to do is just right click on SeleniumBase and do a new file, and I'm going to create a Python file. I can name this one test.py, and then I'm going to click on the Python file. So this is just a sample file that I created, and I'm going to do print to just test something out. So I'm just going to print hello world. I'm going to save this. Then I'm going to try to run this to see if this is actually working for me. Now to run this, I can do right click and then do run test. So there you go, it printed out hello world for us. That means our project as well as the virtual environment setup is working properly. So that's great. Now the next thing we're going to do is install SeleniumBase. So to do that, we're going to use pip to install SeleniumBase, and I'm going to click on terminal over here. And in my terminal, one thing to notice it over here, you can see 𝐕𝐈𝐍. That means we're inside the virtual environment. So anything we install will be installed on this particular virtual environment. So that's great. That's exactly what we want to do so that we don't install the packages globally. So to install SeleniumBase, I'm going to do pip install SeleniumBase. So pip is the package installer for Python. So I'm going to do pip install SeleniumBase. Just to make sure if you have multiple pip versions, you can also do pip3 install SeleniumBase. So this will guarantee that you're using the pip3 version instead of using any older version. And I'm going to click enter here. So now it's downloading SeleniumBase for me. So I'm going to wait once this is downloaded, then I'll be back. Okay, so all of our packages are installed now. And if you notice, it installed quite a bit of packages over here as part of SeleniumBase installation. And if I go to virtual environment here, and over here, if I click on libraries and do site packages, I can take a look at all the packages that got installed. So here you can also find, for example, PyTest. If I scroll down, so over here, if you can notice, it installed PyTest as well as some other PyTest related packages too. So like I said, SeleniumBase comes inbuilt with bunch of packages and it gets all put together into one framework. And that's the advantage. We don't have to separately install these packages. Instead, we just install SeleniumBase and it will do all the rest of the work for us. Now to make sure that SeleniumBase is working for us, what we can do is type in SeleniumBase here. And if I hit enter, this should not throw you any error. So this should basically give you something like this. So this should show you this along with all the necessary commands required for SeleniumBase. Now I can also do sbase instead of typing the entire thing, and it should give me the same thing. There you go. It's pretty much the same thing here. And it told me the version that I'm using for SeleniumBase, which is 1.51.12. So that's the version that I'm using. For you guys, it might be something different. Now that we have SeleniumBase installed, the next thing we need to download is WebDriver. Now for each browser, you're going to be working with different drivers. So for example, for Chrome, you're going to be using Chrome driver. For Edge, you will use something like Edge driver. For Firefox, you'll use Gecko driver and so on. So at this point, I'm only going to install the Chrome driver. Later on, we're going to download the other versions too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sbase and do install. And here you can actually see the command. So you can do sbase install to install the driver. So here I'm going to do sbase install, type in Chrome driver. And then at the end, I'm going to type in latest. And the reason for that is because I'm using the latest Chrome version. So if you're using the latest Chrome version, make sure you pass in this latest tag over here. All right, so let's hit enter now so that it can begin the installation for the Chrome driver. Okay, so the Chrome driver extraction is basically completed. It downloaded Chrome driver from the chromedriver.storage.google API, and then it stored it in this location for me. So this location is basically the same in my virtual environment. You can check it lib, site packages, SeleniumBase, driver, and then over here you can see chromedriver.exe. So that's perfect. So that means this is actually working for us now. Now the next thing we need to do is actually set up our test. We're going to be writing our very first test and then run our test in Chrome browser. Hey, welcome back guys. In this video, we will write our first test in Python using the SeleniumBase framework. Now before we do that, let's take a look at which website we will be using to write tests on in this tutorial series. So I'm here on automationbro.com website. By the way, if you haven't seen this website before, make sure to check it out and also subscribe to the mailing list so that you get notified of all the new content I put out each week. Okay, so once you're here on this website, go to the resources section and click on the practice e-commerce site. Once you do that, it will open up this new website for you. So we will be using this practice e-commerce site, and the URL for this is practice.automationbro.com. So it's built on WordPress and it has multiple functionalities that you would see in a typical e-commerce website, such as you can add or remove items to the cart, you can see your cart total, check out with some fake payment option, and some basic features like login and registration. So this is a full complete website. That means it has a backend component attached to it, as well as any changes you will make here when logged in will get saved here. So you will get a full real site experience on this. So for this Python tutorial series, I will be using this website. You can feel free to go ahead and use any other if you want, or you can also just go ahead and follow along with me and use this website. Alright, now that we know which website we will be using, let's take a look at that first test we will be writing. So our first test is going to be really simple. What we're going to do is open this URL. So we're going to go to practice.automationbro.com through our test. And then from there, we're going to verify the title of this page. So the title is Practice E-commerce site -automation bro. So we're going to verify this. And once we do that, so that would basically be able to give us some good experience of how our test works, how to run the test. And after that, we're going to add in another session just to verify this Automation Bro logo and to see if that logo is present once we open up this page. So really simple, but this should cover the basics of how to write your first test. And I think it should give you some enough experience on how to get started with Selenium Base and Python. So let's head over to PyCharm and get started. So I'm back here in Selenium Base, and from our previous videos, if you remember, we created this test.py file, and then we had this basic print hello world functionality here. Now we created this folder Selenium Python, inside that we added this. So what we're going to do now is, obviously this test.py is not really helpful for us. So we will get started with creating a new package. So I'm going to do right click here and do new and create a Python package. And here I'm going to name this one test. So we're going to create a test folder. And this test.py, I'm going to rename this to test_home.py. So we're going to create a test for our home file. So to rename this, I'm going to right click on test.py, do refactor, rename, and then change this to test_home.py. And then I will just refactor this. Then I will click on this and drag it inside the test folder so that we have our test_home.py file inside the test folder. Okay, so now that we have some basic figured out in terms of our folder structure, we will get started with writing our first test. So let me get rid of the print statement from here. And now the very first thing we're going to do is import Selenium Base. So to import Selenium Base, we're going to do this by doing from Selenium Base. And you can see this automatically. I'm getting this suggestion over here. I'm going to click on that. And then from Selenium Base, I'm going to import the base case class. So I'm going to do from Selenium Base, import base case. I'm going to hit enter. So base case is a class that Selenium Base provides us, and it has all the helpful functionalities that we need to be able to run our test. And we're going to look into base case a little bit more once we get down to looking into the Selenium Base API. Alright, so now that we have imported base case, we're going to create our first class. So to create a class, we're going to use class. And then I'm going to name this class. We can name it something simple. I'm going to name this home test because this will have all my tests related to my home file. Then I'm going to add brackets here and basically create my first class. And then I will just do pass. So pass is just a temporary placeholder here. So we will remove this and actually start adding our function. But I just wanted to show you what we did here. So we created our class. We called it home test. And inside the home test in our bracket, we're going to be inheriting base case. So I'm going to type in base case here so that we have access to the base case inside our home test class. Now, if you're not familiar with inheritance or the object-oriented concepts, what we just did is using base case. Once we put it here, our home test now has access to everything that the base case provides us. So we will be able to call all the methods of base case through the home test class. And that's the power of inheritance we get. Now here, I'm going to get rid of pass and I'm going to add my first method. And I can name this one test_home_page. And I'm going to add self here and then hit enter. And over here, I'm just going to add some comments. The first comment I'm going to add is we have to open our home page. I'm going to do open home page. The next thing we need to do is assert our title. So I'm going to do assert page title. And after that, we're going to do optional. And this is going to be assert our logo. So this would be assert logo. Okay, so that's good. Now what we did here is we created our method or definition and we call that test_homepage. And this is as part of our home test class. And then we added self here. Now self represents the instance of this class. So by using the self keyword, we can access the attributes as well as the method of the class in Python. And you will take a look at how this works once we start using self. So let's take a look at how we can open the home page and assert the page title or assert the logo. So we don't really know how this works because we are not familiar with how Selenium Base or the base case
class actually works. So to actually look into how this works, we're going to head over to SeleniumBase documentation and figure out how all of these things work. So I'm going to open up Chrome and I'm going to open up the SeleniumBase website. So I'm here on seleniumbase.io. And from here, I'm going to click on API reference so that we can understand how SeleniumBase API works. So here SeleniumBase has provided us with all the method summary and what it actually does. So the very first thing that you can see is self.open. So this one actually opens your web page, and this is what we need. We need to open practice.automationbro.com. This is what we need to open. So we should most likely be able to do by self.open and then provide our URL over here. The next thing we need to do is assert the page title. So here I'm going to do a quick search to see how I can assert something. Now if I search that, I'm going to do assert page or maybe assert title, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, we have this. So we have self.assert title and we can pass in the title there. So I think this might work for us. We'll try it out and see if this works. And the next thing we're going to do is verify whether this logo is present. So we're going to verify whether that element is there. So I think we should probably be able to do by self assert element, see if they have that. So they have element present or they have the assert underscore element. So I think we can just use the assert underscore element present and see if that would work for us. Okay, so now that we know some of the methods we will be using or the SeleniumBase API that we will be using, so let's head over back to PyCharm and implement this. Okay, so just as a side note, every time guys, if you're working with new frameworks, make sure to check out the documentation as you will get all the information or at least majority of the information that you need through the documentation. And after later on, if you're stuck with something, you can check out some tutorials or just Google some stuff online and most likely you'll find that help online. All right, so now let's take a look at how we can open homepage. So we already take a look at that. To do that, we're going to use self.open method. So I'm going to do self.open. And the moment I type this, I get all these auto suggestions by the IDE, which is extremely helpful. So I'm going to click on .open here. And then here we need to pass in our base URL. So my URL is https practice.automationbro.com. You can put any other website that you want if you're working with a different website. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here. So this will open up our practiceautomationbro.com. The next thing I want to verify is asserting the page title. So we did look at the page title, but what we should do now is actually go to Chrome again and then copy the title. I'm going to come back to Chrome here. And then to copy the title, I'm going to right click. This will open up the DevTools for me. And in the DevTools, I can just go at the very top, or actually I can search for title here. And there you go. That's my title. I'm just going to copy this and then head back to PyCharm. And here I'm going to do self.assert title and then paste the title. Perfect. Now we also have this assert logo. I'm going to skip that for now. We will add that later on. First, let's just try to run this and see if our code actually works. Now we haven't covered this on how to run tests in SeleniumBase. So to run tests in SeleniumBase, we just have to use the PyTest functionality. Since SeleniumBase uses PyTest functionality, we can also run tests by just running the PyTest command. So to run some tests in PyTest, what you can do is in your command line, you can just type in PyTest. And that's pretty much it. If you hit enter, your test would start running. But just to explain you how this would work, the moment I hit enter here, what PyTest does it looks into the test folder. So we have this test folder. From there, it will look into any file that has the test underscore extension. So here we have the extension test underscore home. So then it will come in here and then it will take a look at, okay, if it has a method including test underscore starting with this. So we do have a method that starts with test underscore. Now let's say if we didn't have this method and it was called just homepage, then it wouldn't have picked this up. So I'm going to fix this again and then put test underscore home there back. And then I'm going to run this to see if PyTest is able to pick up our test or not. So I will hit enter and see if this would work. So the moment I did that, it has started to run a test and you can see here that it picked up test underscore home.py file. Now what it will do is it will try to spin up the Chrome browser. There you go, spinning up Chrome browser. And I'm just going to wait until it opens up the website and then closes it down. All right, so we have our first passing test. How awesome is that? And we did that literally with just a couple of lines of code. That's all it took us to be able to run our first test in Python using the SeleniumBase framework. So that's the advantage you get, guys, when using new frameworks like SeleniumBase, and I think it's really amazing. Just imagine if you were doing this with basic Selenium and Python, you would have to work with instantiating your driver and then opening the driver, closing the driver, and just working with the different URLs and all the Selenium and WebDriver methods, and it would have taken a lot more time to get all of this working. But with SeleniumBase, you don't really have to worry about all of that. All you're doing is just focusing on what you're trying to do with your test. Here, I'm just trying to open up my home page and I'm trying to verify the page title. That's it. Everything else SeleniumBase is taking care of for us. So now that we have our first test passing, let's take a look at and add another assertion, which is verifying the logo. So I'm going to go back to Chrome and our practice.ecommerce website. And here, to verify the logo, I'm going to select this logo here. So the moment I select this by clicking on this button here, we get access to this. And the logo is this href. And let's see if we have this unique class. So I'm going to search for this to see if this is unique class. Yeah, this is. So the custom.-logo.link is unique. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm just going to verify whether this element exists there on my actual web page. I'm going to go back to PyCharm. And here I'm just going to do self.assert_element. And I can either do element visible or I can just do _element. That would just make sure it's present. So I'm just going to go with element just to keep things simple. And here I'm going to add in my selector. So the selector I just copied is this CSS class here, which is .custom-logo-link. And I will just run this and to see if this is able to actually pick up this element. Now let's say if it runs this and this element is not there, it will throw me an error, and we will look into that by actually changing this later on. But just run this test and see if this works for us. All right, so we have our test passing again. That's amazing. So that's all we will be doing in terms of our first test. So one thing I'm going to make sure before we end this video is making sure if these assertions are actually working. And the way we can verify that is by failing our assertions. And we can do that by just changing some stuff here. For example, if I get rid of this site here, and then if I run this to see if this would actually fail my test or not. If it fails, that means our assertion is actually working. If it doesn't fail, that means something is going wrong and it's most likely is not able to pick up our assertion. Now you don't have to do this every time, but I would still recommend for you whenever you're writing your new test, at least make sure that your assertions are properly working by failing your test and then rerunning them again to get them passing again. Okay, so our test passed and that's awesome. That's what we expected. And if you notice here, it's saying that there's an assertion error. It was trying to verify practice ecommerce.automation bro, which is what we actually provided here, to equal to this e-commerce site. Basically, it's not actually equal to it. That's what it's telling us, that it should include the site, which is actually not there. And it's actually telling me right over here with this plus that, hey, the site thing is missing there. So that's good. That means our assertion is working. And that's exactly what we want. And you can also go ahead and try to verify a session for this element too. You can maybe just change the element and try to run this and see if this fails for you. So let's do a quick review of what we covered in this video, guys. The very first thing we did is we created a test folder. Under the test folder, we added this test_home.py file. And make sure if you're not using PyCharm that you add this _init.py file here so that it's a Python package. And once we did that, we imported our Selenium base. And basically we imported the base case class from the SeleniumBase framework. From there, we created our class. We called it home test. And then we inherited base case from there. The moment we inherited that, we got access to all these open methods as well as assert title and assert element method. Now from there, we created our test called test_homepage, and then we opened our homepage and added our assertions and then tried running our test using the PyTest method. Now the reason we're using PyTest is because SeleniumBase is using PyTest behind the hood. So we are running that to be able to actually run our test to see if that works for us. So that was a quick overview. Hope you guys understand how that works. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comments below. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, as that's how I know you guys are really enjoying my content, and this will help me keep making more content for you guys. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we'll get familiar with some of the methods being used in the SeleniumBase API. We will understand how it works and which one to use when. In the previous video, we looked into a couple of methods such as the open method as well as looked into some assert methods, which is asserting the title as well as asserting this logo element over here. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure to check that out first so that you can follow along easily. In this video, we're going to look into a couple more of SeleniumBase API. So the first one we're going to look into is the click method. And then we're also going to take a look at how we can assert the URL. And then we're going to get the text of one of our header and then assert the value of that text. And then at the end of the video, we will also do a short exercise. So hope you guys are excited. Let's get started. So I'm going to head over to SeleniumBase API documentation so that we can understand different API methods over there. So I'm here on the SeleniumBase API documentation, and in a previous video, we looked into this already and looked at a couple of the open methods such as the assert methods. So in this video, the very first thing we're going to focus on is this self.click. So the scenario that we will be working through is, let me head over to this practice.automationbrew.com. So over here, we're going to click on this Get Started button. Now this button doesn't really do anything. What it will do is, if you notice at the very top, it will change the URL. It will add the Get Started at the end of this URL here. So if I click on this, that's what it does. If you notice, it adds this Get Started with the pound sign in the beginning. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to click on this, and after that, we're going to verify whether this URL has this thing that get added on the top. So let's take a look at how we can actually do that. So I'm going to go back to PyCharm. And here, first thing we have to do is click on the Get Started button. Now to click on this button, I'm going to just do self.click. And the ID for that is actually Get Started. So I'm just going to type that in here. Get Started. And you can go ahead and find the ID by yourself if you want to. But in this case, I already know the ID. So I'm just going to put that here. So this will actually click on the button. The next thing we need to do is get the URL. The moment we click on this, it changes the URL, right? So to get the URL, I can use a method called getCurrentURL. So I can do self.getCurrentURL. What this does is it will provide me the current URL that's there on the browser. So once I do this, it will return me a string. So some kind of text, which would be my URL. So I can store that string. So I can store it here by just saying get started URL. And then I will store it in this variable. So now we just need to assert a URL. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do self.assert. And here I have something called assert equal. So I'm verifying two statements over here, or two basically parameters. The first parameter as well as the second parameter. The first parameter would be the get started URL. This would be the current URL that we just got. And then I need to verify it with the URL that we're expecting it to be. So the URL that I'm expecting is, if I head over back to my website, I'm going to copy this entire thing. And then I'm going to go back to PyCharm and I will paste that over here. There you go. So what we're saying is, hey, when you get the current URL should match this URL. That's what we are doing with assert equal over here. So it will just check two parameters over here. So let me run this and see if this would work for us. So to run this, we're going to use the pytest command, and then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, there you go. We ran our test and it successfully passed. So that's pretty awesome. So this is working. Now, one thing to notice here is we are actually entering the entire URL here. But what if I just want to verify like just the end part over here? I want to say that, okay, in my URL, all I want to make sure is that the get started part is there. I don't really care about what's there in the beginning. I just want to make sure that this part at the end is actually there. Now to do that, what we can do is do something called partial verification. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to use another assertion. I'm going to do self assert true. So I'm here checking for a value or an expression that's actually going to return me true. So here what I will say is that the get started text, I want my get started text in the URL. So I'm going to say in, and then I'm going to say get started URL. So what here I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, the get started text, which is this string over here, it should be part of this get started URL that we're getting over here. If it's there, that means our assertion is working. If it's not there, that means it's not working. So I will run this again and see if this would work for us. Okay, so my test actually failed over here and it's saying that false is not true. And I just realized the reason for that is because I did get underscore started. Instead, it should be get dash started. So at least we know that our assertion is working. So that's good. So I'm going to fix this again, change it to get started, and then run this again. Okay, so this time when I ran, my assertions passed, so everything is working. So basically, just to quickly review, like what we are doing here is we're saying if this text is in part of this get started URL, then give me a true value. If it's returning true, that means our assertion is working. If this return a false statement, because this is an expression, if it's saying it's not there, then this assertion would fail, which we just saw just a while ago. Alright, so now we were able to verify by clicking on this get started button as well as asserting the URL. And we did this two ways. One is by asserting the entire URL and another one is just verifying the partial text. So that's good. The next thing we're going to do is get the text of the header and then assert the value of that. So let's see how we can do that. So I'm going to go back to my website over there, which is practice.automationbro.com. And here I have this header, think different, make different. So let's try to get this text and then assert the text. So I'm going to right click here and do inspect. So if you notice that this is an H1. So over here, this is an H1 and this is also going to be unique. So if I just check for this, yeah, this is unique. So we have just one H1 here. So using this H1 tag, we're going to try to get this text and then verify the value of the text. So let's see what assertions we can use here. I'm going to API reference here and then API reference, I'm going to check for something with assert text. I'm going to search assert text. Okay, so this is there. So it's doing assert text. So all it takes is basically a text and a selector. So it's good for us because we know the text, which is this entire things, think different, make different, and our tag is H1. So I'm just going to copy this text first. I'm going to do right click, edit, and then just copy this entire thing and then head over to PyCharm. All right, so to get the text of the header and assert the value, we can just use single assertion here, which would be our self.assert text. And what this would do is we just need to provide the text that we're trying to verify, which is this text. And then I wanted to provide the selector. So in my case, the selector is the H1 tag. So I will just pass that in. So let's take a look at what exactly is happening. So if I press in Control here and then click on this assert text, what this would do is open up this new base case class for me. So this is the same class that we're actually importing here. So if I go there into this base case class, I can see what's happening with this. So the exact definition of what happens when we actually go ahead and access the assert text method. So here, what it's trying to do is it's trying to wait for the text to be visible. And I can actually go here again to see what that is doing. So what that does is it waits for this particular text to be available. So what it's doing is it's going in and checking if this text is available for this particular H1 tag. So that's what it's actually trying to do. So let me run this and see if this would work for us. All right, there you go. Our assertion passed. So that's pretty awesome. So what it actually did is it went to this H1 tag. It got the text from that H1 tag and then it verified whether the text is basically this. So that's pretty good. Okay, so now we looked into a couple of the APIs of Selenium Base. We looked into the click method. We looked into assert equal, assert true, and assert text. So now it's time for an exercise. So this is what I want you guys to do. Let me just remove this. So as part of your exercise, what I want you to do is I want you to scroll all the way to the bottom and assert the copyright text. So let me head over to the Chrome and then show it to you what I mean by it. So here I want you to scroll all the way to the bottom and here we have this copyright text. So if I just go over there and access this and let me just expand this. So this copyright text, I want you to get this text and then assert this entire text, which is copyright 2020 Automation Bro. So this is what I want you to do as part of this exercise. So go ahead and pause this video and try this on your own. So I'm going to wait for a bit and then we will get started with the solution. All right, were you guys able to figure that out? So let me show you how I will do this. I'm going to go over to this API reference here. And the first thing I want to make sure is how I can scroll to the bottom. So I'm going to search for scroll here and see if they have this specific method. So here I can see that they have some method here, scroll to, slow scroll to, scroll to top, and scroll to bottom. Okay, so this is something that I think that might work for me. So I'm going to use this. And after that, I just need to assert the text. So to assert the text, I am going to be using this class here. So let me see if this is unique. Yeah, so this one is actually unique. So this one is just a comment, so that's fine. So I'm going to be using this class. So that's good. So I'm going to head over to PyCharm and then actually try to implement this. Okay, so the first thing, like we said, we have to scroll to the bottom. So I'm going to do self dot scroll to bottom. So hopefully they should scroll all the way to the bottom. And then from there, I'm going to assert the copy text. So I'm going to do self.assert text. And I need to provide the text here, which I haven't copied yet. But I'm going to paste in the selector that I copied from there. And I'm going to quickly head over back to Chrome and then copy the text. So I can just copy the text from here. And then go back to PyCharm and paste the text here. So let me run this and see if this would work for me. Okay, awesome. So that did work. So it actually scrolled all the way to the bottom and it was able to assert the text of this entire thing. So if your solution was different than me, that's okay too. Maybe you might have done that. You got the text through this and then you asserted the value of that. So what I mean by that is, let's say if I do print and here I try to get the text of this, I can do that by doing self.getText and I can get text of this entire element here. So this way it would actually return the text from this entire element and the text that it would return is this. And then I can probably do like assert equal there. So I would say the text that I got back is equal to the text that I'm looking for, which is this. So that's another way of doing this. So either way, either you do this way or you do it this way, both are totally okay. All right, so that's all I'm going to be covering in this video, guys. Let me do a quick review of what we covered so far. So we looked into different of Selenium-based APIs. We looked into the open method. We looked into assert title, assert element. We then took a look at in this video how we can click an element, how we can get the current URL of the particular element, and then how we can assert a value. So we tried it using the equal value, and then we can try it also using the expression value. So using assert true, which returns true or false value. And then we also take a look at how we can assert the text of a particular element using the assert text method. And then as part of the exercise, we looked at how we can scroll to bottom or scroll to top if maybe that was the case, and then how we can assert the text. So similarly, guys, there are way too many APIs over here as part of the Selenium-based API. You can keep going here and try to get familiar with it. In some of our future videos, we will be touching a lot more of these over here. So try this out on your own. Try to get familiar with some more APIs over there. If not, you can just follow along with the future videos so that you get a better understanding of how Selenium-based API works. That's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. Also, leave a comment below if you have any questions related to this video or if there's some other topics you would like me to create content on. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we will be touching upon a couple of key concepts. One of the main goals of the video is to show you how to work with multiple elements. So for that, we will learn how to use the find elements method and how to loop through multiple web elements. But at the same time, we will look into a couple of miscellaneous stuff, such as how we can print statements to the console for debugging purposes. And we will also talk a little bit about the CSS versus the XPath selector and how we can use that in Selenium-base. So let's get started and take a look at what tests we will be creating in this video. So I'm back here on our practice website, and the test that we will be working through is basically looping through this li elements, or basically the list elements over here. So if I right click and inspect on these element, so I'm just gonna select this one, the first one, which is the home. And if I just move this up, you can notice that we have this UL, which is the unordered list. And within that, we have a bunch of li elements, which is the list elements, right? And these are all this list elements. So the one that we care about are just for the home, about, shop, blog, contact, and my account. So basically the ones that actually contains a text. And you can notice here the ones that contains text have this ID, which is menu item -489, 491, and basically there's different IDs. The other two, which is this search button over here and this icon over here for the cart, actually does not have that ID, which is menu item dash a particular number there. So this is how we're actually going to be working through and finding our unique selectors for each of these elements. So let's head over to PyCharm and get our base test set up. Okay, so I'm back here in PyCharm, and over here, this is the test that we have created in our previous videos, which basically it goes to the home page and does some verification. So what I'm going to do is actually minimize this over here and instead just going to create a new test. So it is possible to add some new test here, basically this new method, just the way we did it for this test homepage. I can go in here and then basically add a new one. So this time I can say test menu links. So once again, remember to add test in the beginning, and then you can just name it whatever you want. So I'm going to do test menu links, and over here, just to make sure that this test is independent of the test above, I will open up the practice website again, and then I will try doing whatever I need to do here. This way I can directly run this test instead of relying on this particular test. And when you're working with automation, your best goal should be to try to keep your test as isolated as possible so that you can parallelly run them without having to running into any dependency issues. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is open our URL. So I'm just going to add this comment here. So we'll do self.open. And this part we already know. So I'm just going to do HTTPS, just directly add in the website here, which is going to be practice.automationbro.com. All right, so after we open up the URL, the next thing we need to do is find our elements, or basically the menu links. So to do that, I'm going to just add this here, the find menu links elements. So to find multiple elements, we're going to use the find elements command. So what that's going to be is self.find_elements. And as you can see, that's already coming up over here. So there's another one, which is find element, which will only find an individual element. However, the first one here, find elements, will return us multiple web elements. And that's what we're looking for because we are working with multiple elements over here. And I will show you that quickly once we move over back to our Chrome. So I'm going to enter this here. So right here, we need to add a selector. So how exactly are we going to try to find this? Now here we have two options. So far in our previous videos, we have looked into the CSS selector way. So I can go in and add my CSS selector here, or I can also go in and do it through XPath. So that's also an option here. So let's take a look at how we can actually find the element using XPath. So I'm going to go back to Chrome to actually find that element, and then we will come back here and actually paste that element. Okay, so I'm back here in Chrome, and we have our same practice.automationbro website here. And what we need to do is get access to this menu item. Now what I will do is first show you how we can access this using CSS selector. So I'm just going to show you a way how to do it using CSS selector, and then I will show you how you can do the same thing through XPath. Now basically what we're trying to do is get access of all of these list elements. So it's going to return us 6 nodes. That's what our goal is going to be. Now I cannot just directly go in and just basically do primary menu. So let's say this is the unique ID here, which is primary menu. If I search for that, I can see that I have one node here. So this is unique, which is good. And from there, if I just do list, it's returning me 9 lists there. So, and the reason for that is it's actually returning all the lists that are over here, including these 2. And I don't really want that. All I'm looking for is just these 6 over here. So to access that, I'm actually going to have to go through this menu item ID that's there. So here what I'm going to do is we can see that it is doing menu-item-some number. So we will do star there so that we don't really know what that number is, but we're just going to assume that there's going to be something after dash. So that's how we're going to find. So I'm going to do primary menu, and then in the brackets, which is the square brackets, I'm going to do ID. And then I'm going to do star equal, and then I would actually add in the ID. So the ID is going to be menu-item, and there you go, right here. So if the moment I did menu-item, and if I just, for example, just add in a dash there, it's going to show me there are 6 nodes, and that's exactly what we are looking for. And actually, I can even just get rid of this dash because this is an ID. So the moment I do ID equals menu-item, we actually get all the 6 nodes right here. Because if you notice these 2, these are classes, these are not ID over here. So I can do that list ID equals menu-item, and this will give me access to this particular thing here. And in fact, I can probably get rid of primary menu too, and that should give me the same thing. Yep, it does. So we can just kind of use this, which is list ID equals menu-item. So this is going to be my CSS selector. And the key thing here is that I'm doing star equal menu-item. So what that means is that it should start with menu-item, and after that, it doesn't really matter what it's going to be. So you can notice after that, we have 5, 6, 7, and all of this other stuff. But since we have been working with CSS selectors a lot, I just want to switch it up and instead use XPath instead. So to work with XPath, what we're going to do is just do / and basically a typical XPath format. I'm going to do star. And here I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, let me just fix that again. I'm going to do / star. And then I'm just going to do starts with. So I'm saying that, hey, my ID is going to start with, and then do bracket here, add in ID, and just say that it will be menu-item, that it's starting with the menu-item. And the moment I do that, I get 6 nodes again, and the same way I can just kind of loop through all of those. So this is how you will find your ID through XPath. So it's totally up to you guys. If you want to use CSS selector, go ahead and use that. If you feel like you're more comfortable with XPath, then you can just make your own XPath and then use that too. In this video, I will just use XPath and show you how that works. Also, just as a side note, let me know if you guys are interested in learning about CSS selectors and XPath, or basically how you can find your unique nodes using CSS and XPath. Put that in the comments below if you're interested, and then I can probably create a video on that too. Alright, so for now, I'm just going to copy this XPath over here and then head back to PyCharm. Okay, so I'm back here in PyCharm and I'm going to simply just paste this here. So the key thing to notice here is that all we are doing is just pasting the XPath over here. I'm not specifying that, hey, I'm using XPath or I'm using CSS selector. If even I was using CSS selector, I could have just pasted that there, and we don't have to mention that to SeleniumBase. The SeleniumBase goes ahead and actually does this identification for us, and we don't have to worry about that. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so let's see what we have done. So we have opened the URL and then we have find the elements using the find elements method. Now what find elements does is when you actually run it, it will return a list of matching web elements. So in our case, it will return a list of bunch of list elements because that was part of a menu item list. So it's going to return as bunch of list. Now these elements could be either hidden or visible on the page. It doesn't matter. It will still return us back. So to actually test this out, what we can do is print this particular thing and see what comes back. So to print it out, I'm simply just going to add print here and then just going to run our test. So to run an individual test, we can do that by specifying to PyTest using the -k flag. So I'm just going to copy this here and basically just type in PyTest -k and then I can type in test_menu_links. So this is a way for me to say to PyTest, hey, just run this test, don't run any other test. Basically that is in part of this test folder. And I can run this by obviously just hitting enter, and then it will start spinning up our Chrome browser. Okay, so we ran our test and it was said passed, no issues basically. So at this moment, if you notice, nothing really printed out. And the reason for that is to print something out, we need to pass in another flag. So that flag is basically the -s flag. So when I do -s, it will actually print out what we are trying to print out in the console over here. Now, but one thing to notice here is using the -k, it only ran one test. So if you can notice, it says one disselected. So this thing right here, the first test, it disselected that. It didn't run that. It only ran just this one. So we know that this flag is actually working. Now we're going to add in another flag, which is -s. What this will do instead is actually print out whatever we're trying to print out over here. So let's run this and see if this would print it out on our console. Okay, so this time it ran and we have this web element that got printed out. Now, if you notice here that this is a list, so it starts here, it ends here, and we have a bunch of web elements here. Now, these are basically all the web elements that are part of our menu list. So this thing right here, menu links elements, this is actually that. So this is good that this is actually printing out all those list elements, but all we are seeing is basically the session ID and the element ID. So this is not really helpful for us. What we need instead is text. So how can we get that? Well, to get the text, we're going to have to loop through this list and then print out text one by one. So for that, I'm just going to save this into a variable so that then we can loop through it. So I'm going to call this one, let's say, menu links element, or I can just do L, make it simple. All right, so I've saved this in a variable. Now I'm just going to loop through it. So loop through our nav links, our menu links, basically. Okay. So we can loop through this menu links element list just the way we would loop through any other list in Python. So I'm going to use the for in loops for that. So I'm going to do for link element in menu links element. And then here I can actually print out my link element. I can just do print link element dot text. Now if I run this, it should technically print out the text for each of these web elements there. So let's see if this would work for us. Okay, so this passed for us, and if you can see, it actually printed out all of these menu links items for us. So we have our home, about, shop, blog, contact, and my account. So that's pretty awesome. So that means this is actually working. We are able to get all those list elements, and we can also print it out using the .text command. So that's nice. The next thing we're going to do is add our assertion in our test. So right now we're just printing it out, but at the end of the day, what we want to make sure is that the list items we're coming back are actually the list items that we're actually expecting. So for that, what I will do is just create a new variable. So I can call this one, let's say, expected links. So these are going to be my expected links. And here I can simply paste the links that I copied from there. So I can just paste them here, and let me just quickly fix this formatting. All right, so I fixed the formatting. It's looking much better now. So this is going to be our expected links. So when we are looping through it, we're going to match each individual text that's coming back through one by one through each of these indexes. So currently with our loop over here, we don't really have indexes. So what I'm going to do is add an index here. So we'll just do index link element. And here I'm just going to use the enumerate method. So I will do enumerate and then put our links element list over here under the enumerate method over here. So all I'm doing here is, hey, just give me the index. To get the index, I'm using the enumerate method so that I can get the index for each of them. So this time, if I print out index and the link element.text, it should actually print out each and individual index for us, along with the actual text. Okay, so let me move this up, our test pass, and over here you can see we are getting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is basically the indexes that we are getting back as part of our for in loop. So that's good. Now I'm going to take advantage of those indexes and I will add in my assertion. So for assertion, I can just verify that my expected links verify the actual text that are going to be returned back. So I can do something like self.assert equal, and then here I can say my expected links, and then in the bracket, I'm going to say index. It should match the links.text. And let me just comment this out because we don't need it anymore. So here all I'm saying is the expected links index. So first time when it will run, it's going to be 0. That should match the first text, which is going to be basically right over here. So 0 should match home, 1 should match, this thing should match about, the next one should match shop, and so on. So let's run this to see if our session would work. Okay, so we ran and our test successfully passed. We didn't get any errors, so our session is also working. So that's pretty cool. So our test over here is completed, and basically just to quickly review what we did is, so first we went to the URL, which is our main URL. From there, we used the find elements method, and the find elements method returned us a list of matching web element. From there, we passed in the XPath. Now, once again, this is optional. You can pass in XPath or CSS selector, totally up to you. Based on that, we actually printed it out. What that was returning us was a list of web elements. Now, what we did with that is actually loop through them. So we looped through it one by one, and we use the enumerate method here to get the index. And after that, we are just verifying that, hey, each individual text that's returning back should match our expected list over here. Now, this looping part here, it could be done in other ways, or in fact, the assertion could be done in other ways too. So for example, you can just loop through the entire list. You can push the entire list into a new list and then verify the two lists, basically expected list and the new list. So that's also an optional. Either way, it doesn't matter which way you're doing it, as long as you're asserting whatever you're trying to assert and it works, that's all that matters. Alright, I hope now you understand how to work with multiple web elements in SeleniumBase and Python. So go ahead and try this out on your own and work with some other examples. And let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or if you run into any issues. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we will be learning about how to work with input fields using SeleniumBase and Python. So let's get started and take a look at the test scenario that we will be covering in this video. So I'm here on our Practice Automation Bro website. And from here, I'm going to go to the contact page. So I'm going to click here on the contact link. So on the contact page, I'm just going to scroll down. And here we have our contact fields over here. So we have name, email, phone, message, and the submit button. So pretty straightforward. So what we're going to be doing is filling in these fields and then hit the submit button. So let me just fill some test fields here. So I'm going to do test name, test@mail.com, and some random input here, test message. And I'm going to hit submit. So the moment I do that, it's going to redirect to this particular page over here. It's basically the same page, except we're going to see this thanks for contacting us alert message. So we're going to make sure that we see this message when we submit these fields. So let's head over to PyCharm and get started with writing some code. Okay, so I'm back here in PyCharm, and over here so far we have written two tests, one for the home page, one for the menu links. Now, instead of keep working on this same page over here, which was the home test, now that we're actually working with the contact page, we're going to create a new test over here, or basically a new file. So in the test folder, I'm just going to create a new file, and I will name this one test_contact. I'll create that. So this one will be same as the previous one. So we're going to make sure that we import Selenium base and the base case basically over here. So once we do that, I'm going to create my class. I will call this one contact test. And then once we create the class, we're going to just create our actual methods over here. But before that, I need to make sure I'm importing base case. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to import base case, basically inherit base case in a contact test. Now let's create our method. So we're going to call this one test_contact page. So this is what we need to do. Same as previous one, we need to make sure we're going to open the page. Once we open the page, we need to make sure we fill in all the fields. So we're going to fill all the fields that were there that were basically our name, email, phone number, and the text field there. So once that is done, we need to make sure we click the submit button. So we'll do that. And then once the submit button is clicked, after that, we have to verify our submit message. So I'll do verify submit message. All right. So always make sure when you're writing your test, you need to know what exactly you're trying to do. So this is a nice way of you can comment stuff out, and it's easier for you to know what exactly you will be putting in your test. So to open the page, well, that one is straightforward. We have been doing that. I'm going to do self.open and then put in the URL. So I'm just going to copy the URL from this test over here. And then just put this here. The only thing we're going to change is instead of opening the home page, we're going to open the contact page. And I can do that by adding /contact. Okay, so this will open up the contact page. After that, we have to fill all the fields. So let's head over to Chrome and get the selectors that we need for our fields. Okay, so to get the fields, I'm going to right click here, inspect. And then over here, let's take a look at what exactly it is. So this one is an input field, and then we can see that it has an input text. So let's see if there is a class that we can find or some kind of unique ID. So we do have a unique class here. So this is contact name, this one is contact email, this one is contact phone, and so on. So we can probably do like contact name and space input, which should give us this input field over here. So let's test it out. So I'm going to do contact name, and then I'm going to do input. All right, so that is giving me this unique field over here, which is basically our name field. So if I change this one to, let's say, email, it should give me the unique one for the email. Yep, that works. And then we can do the same thing for, let's say, phone. Let's do for phone. Yeah, that is unique too. And the next one is, I believe, should be text area. So yeah, contact message and the text area. So I'm going to change this one to contact message. And this should be our text area. Yep. All right. So there you go. So we have all of these. So I'm going to copy these selectors, and then I'm also going to make sure that I have the selector for the submit button here, which is, let's see if we have a unique ID. Yep. This is the unique ID. So I'm going to take this unique ID. I'm going to use that. Okay. So I'm going to head over to PyCharm and then start writing our test. So to fill in the fields or basically add a text, we can use the sendKeys method. Now this sendKeys method is a bit different than the sendKeys method you're going to find in the driver method, which is driver.sendKeys when you will be working with plain Selenium WebDriver and Python, because this one comes with additional features such as it will wait for the element field to be there, it will make sure that the field is present, it's visible, and then it will go ahead and add all the sendKeys. And there's some additional stuff that it does too. And we can take a look at that once I add this in. So I'm going to do self.sendKeys. And here I need to mention the CSS selector that I'm going to use. So that was contact name. And then we had our input. So I'm going to add that. Then I need to add in the text. So what exactly I'm putting there? So I can say it should be test name. Same way I can just copy paste this and then add this for my, let's say, which one was that? This was contact name email. And copy this entire thing, do the same thing for the other two also. All right, so we have added all the fields here. And the key thing to notice is obviously to actually add text, we need to use the sendKeys command. So there you go, I've added in all the fields here along with the CSS selector and the text message that I need. So the key thing to notice here is the sendKeys command. because that's exactly why we are here, is basically how you can send a text to an input field. And we can use the send keys command for that. So if I open this up, we can actually see the SeleniumBase code over here. So you can see all they're doing is running the self.add text command. And what that is doing is it's basically a reliable version of the driver.sendKeys. So it's kind of waiting for making sure the proper timeout is there. It's making sure the element is visible. It's checking if it's a proper text or if it's an integer, and then kind of goes ahead and does its magic over here. So you can always kind of go in here and dig deeper if you want to. But for this video, I think this is enough. We're going to be using the send keys command. We have the selector and the text message that we need to put here. The next thing we need to do is click the submit button. So for that, we're going to do self.click. And then I'm going to paste the actual selector that I copied before. All right. And then we have to verify the submit message. So to verify the submit message, we will use the assert text. I'm going to assert text, and then I'm going to add in the actual text. So in this case, the text was, actually, let's head back to Chrome and copy the text. Okay, so let me copy this. First of all, I'm going to need the entire text. I'm going to copy that. And then I need to know what exactly is this. So this one seems to be a div role alert. So that feels like that should be unique. I can test it out. Div role equals alert. Yep, that is unique. So we're going to use that. Perfect. So I'm going to head back to PyCharm. Here, I'm going to paste, first of all, the selector. So the selector is div role alert. And then I'm going to paste the entire text. All right. So we are pasting the text here along with making sure that we are actually putting a selector here. So this should be it. This should be our full test. What we are doing is we are opening the page. We are filling in all the fields using the send keys command. And then we are clicking the button and then we are asserting the text. So as you can see, it's super clean, really easy. We know exactly what's happening. We are not adding any weights here or any of that such things because it's straightforward. It's going to go in, fill all the fields, hit the submit button, and then verify the message. Even for this, if you notice when we were actually doing that, it takes a while for us to go ahead and get the text. But when we use the assert text, SeleniumBase takes care of the waiting and everything for us. So let's run this and see if this would work for us. So to run this, I'm going to copy the test contact page over here and we're going to run that through pytest. So I'm going to do pytest-k and then just do test_contact_page. So this should just run this particular test here. So I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so we ran our test and it successfully passed. As you can see over here, we didn't run into any issues. Awesome. So there you go, guys. It's not that hard to work with input fields. All you have to do is do the send keys command and it will add in all the text that you need and basically fill in whatever you need to fill in with. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we will take a look at how to upload file in Selenium using Python and the SeleniumBase framework. So the first example we're going to look at is the file uploader over here. So the website I'm on is the internethirokuapp.com/upload. Now this one is pretty straightforward. What we will do is click on the choose file button. From there, we're going to pass in the file and then we'll click on the upload button. Once we do that, we get this file uploaded message. So we're going to assert this message to make sure that the file is successfully uploaded. So that's going to be our first example. The second test is going to be slightly bit more complicated and it's going to be on our practiceautomationbro.com/cart page. And here we will do the same thing. We're going to upload a file and then pass in the file, do upload. And in this scenario, once we do the upload file here, we're going to see this uploading message. And then eventually it will tell us that the file has been uploaded successfully. Now I will come back to it and tell you why this one is a little bit complicated than the one over here. But for now, let's get started with getting our base test set up and then getting started with this particular test over here. So I'm going to head back to PyCharm and get started with our test. So I'm back here in PyCharm and over here I've created a new class called it upload test. And you can see this that I've created a new file also called it test_upload. Now here I'm using the same thing, SeleniumBase, importing our base case. Now for those of you that are not familiar with SeleniumBase, make sure to check out my previous videos in this series so that you understand how SeleniumBase works and you can follow along easily. I will add the link for that in the description below if you guys want to check it out. Alright, coming back to the test. So we have two tests over here. The first one is the test visible upload. This is the example we were just looking at, which was a straightforward example. The second one is the test hidden upload. Now this is one for our Practice Automation Bro website. So we're going to look into the second one in a bit, but first let's start with the first one. So I'm going to open this up. So over here, I've already added some comments. So the first one is opening the page. So here I'm using the Selenium self.open method. And then here we are passing in the Internet Hero Co-op/upload. Now this is my base URL. So I'm simply passing that here. What Selenium Base will do, it will go in and open up this URL. The next thing here is we need to get the file path. So once we have the file path is basically where my file is located. In my case, it's located under data folder. And under the data folder, I have logo.jpg. And this is basically, if I open this up, it's just a simple logo for Automation Bro. And then I'm going to upload the file. Once the file is uploaded, I'm going to click the upload button. Now I know these two seems a little bit confusing, but we will show you what each of these steps does. And then finally, we're going to assert the file uploaded text. So this is going to be our steps. Let's go ahead and start implementing this. So the first thing for the file path, we're going to pass that in. So I'm going to create a new variable here. And I'm going to name this one file path. And my file is actually located under data. And over here, it's basically logo.jpg. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say this is under data/logo.jpg. Now when I do /, it's actually going to the root folder. Now my root folder is this over here, Selenium Python. So from the root folder, I'm saying, okay, go to the data folder. And then from the data folder, go to the logo. So that's what I'm passing it over here. So this is straightforward. We got our file path over here. Now we need to upload the file. So to upload the file, we can use the Selenium base method and it's called self.chooseFile. Now when I click on this choose file, I have a couple of options here. I need to pass in the selector. So what exactly selector I'm using, where I'm trying to upload this. And the second one is the file path, right? So the file path, we just got it. So we're going to pass that in. And then we're going to head over to Chrome to get our selector. So I'm going to keep my selector empty. And then for the file path, I will simply pass that in. So this is going to be the same file path that we just got. Now let's head over to Chrome and take a look at the selector that we need to pass in for our choose file method. Okay, so I'm back here in Chrome. And over here, where we actually need to upload the file and the selector that we need to pass in would be this particular over here. Not the upload. The upload would be the one that we will be clicking on. But to actually pass in our file, we need to pass into this input field right here. So I'm going to right click here and do inspect. Now, whenever you're working with the upload files, one thing to notice is when you're passing in the file, you need to look for the input type file. Now this is over here, which is input. You can see this input ID file upload and type equals file. So this thing right here, type equals file is the most important thing. Because where you will be actually sending your file would be the type equals file. You cannot send your file to this upload element here or basically send it to some other random element. So you need to find an element which has the type equals file and then you need to send your file in there. So I know this is the one that I'm going to use. So I have the ID already for this, which is file-upload. So we're going to use this ID for our actual selector. And the next thing we need to do is click on this upload button. So I'm already going to take a look at what that one is. So this is an input class button and it has an ID of file submit. Okay, so the first one is file upload, which is going to be our type file. The second one is file submit. So let's just use these methods and head over to PyCharm and actually implement our test. So I'm back here in PyCharm and then here we need to pass in our selectors. So the first one is going to be my file upload. So I'm going to do file-upload and this is an ID. So I'm going to pass in the £. The next one is clicking the upload button. So to clicking the upload button, we can use this doing self.click. And then I'm going to pass in file-submit. All right, so the key thing obviously to notice is to upload a file, we're going to use the choose file method. And to actually click the upload button, we're using the click method. So for our final part, we need to assert that a file is uploaded successfully. So let's jump back to Chrome quickly again and take a look at the assertion that we will need to implement. So here I'm going to upload the file again quickly. And then I'm going to click on the upload button. So this is the text we need to verify, right? So let's take a look at the actual element for that particular text. So this one is an H3. If I search for this H3, see if that is unique. Yeah, that is. So we're going to use the H3 tag over here. And the text we're going to verify is the file uploaded text. So I will just copy that. So I'm back in PyCharm, and here we're going to use the assert text method to actually assert our text. So I will do self.assert text, and then here I'm going to pass in my text. So the text that we copied was file uploaded, and then I will pass in the selector. So my selector was simply h3, so I'm just going to use that. All right, so this is our overall test. So first thing we are doing is opening the page, then we're getting the file path, then we are uploading the file using the choose file method, and then we're clicking the upload button and then asserting the text. Now let's try to run this to see if this would work for us. So to run it, I'm going to use the pytest command, and then I'm going to do test_visible, and then pass in the dash key flag so that it runs just this particular method over here. Okay, so we ran our test, and as you can see, it successfully passed. It says 1 passed over here, and it uploaded our file successfully too. So this one right here is the simplest upload examples that you can find. Now, typically in modern websites, this is not what you're going to find. In modern websites, you're going to see something different. So I'm going to head over to the Practice Automation Bro website, and I'm going to show you the second example that we're going to take a look at. All right, so I'm back here in practice.automationbro.com/cart. The link for this will be in the description below if you guys want to check it out. So this one is a little bit different than the typical example we were looking at. Now over here, as you can notice that there's no choose file button over there, or basically the input type file that we were looking at. If I go back to this Internet Hero app, so this thing right here, this input field is not here. Instead, we're seeing the select file button and upload file as well as this input field right here. So the workflow over here compared to the one that we were looking at is I have to click on the select file button, right? So the moment I click on select file, it triggers up this new screen for me where I can actually upload the file. So if we just follow the same example that we did on our previous example, so what we did was we first find the element, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to find the element here. So the element for that, which is for the select file, is if I move this up, select file is this one. So the ID for this is input1. And then after that, we have to click the upload file button. So I'm going to head over to this one and then select that. So this one is the ID for this is upload1. So basically the first one was, let's go back, take a look at this. So input1 and the upload1. So these are our two IDs. So let's actually implement this exactly the same way that we did for our previous example and see if it would work for us. So I'm going to head back to PyCharm and try to implement this. All right, so I'm back in PyCharm and I have the second method that I showed you initially. So I'm going to expand this. And I've already added our base data over here. So this is all the steps that we basically did over here. So it's exactly the same way. There's nothing different. Everything is same. The only thing that are different is the actual IDs, right? The IDs is the input one right here and the upload one. So these are the two IDs that we just looked at. And that's what I've passed in over here. So I'm going to run this test and see if this test would work for us. So to run this, similar to the one we were doing before, I'm going to do pytest-k. And instead of doing test_visible, I will do test_hidden. And I will run this. Okay, so if you notice that, it opened up the Practice Automation Bro website, and then it just stood there for a couple of seconds, and then after that, our test failed. So after 6 seconds, our test failed. And it's saying that this element right here, which is what we were passing for our assertion, is actually not visible or not present. And the reason for that is because it could not even upload anything. So if it's not able to upload anything, there's obviously it will not find any upload text. All right, so what happened here? In this scenario, it should have worked, right? Because we just tested it out over here with our first example and the same steps we took over here, but it actually failed. So let's head back to Chrome and take a look at why exactly that is happening. Okay, so I'm back in Chrome. So the workflow we were looking at was clicking on the select file and the upload file, right? But if I hover over to select file here, you can notice the moment I hover over there, we have something else here. So this is the input type file, right? This is the same input type file that I was talking about. Whenever you're uploading a file, you need to focus on the input type file. It doesn't matter what else is there on top of it. So typically with modern websites, they will not show you this choose file input over here. Instead, they would add some type of styling on top of it to make it look pretty. And behind the scenes, they will throw this choose file there. And same thing is happening here. So the moment I hover over to this, you can see this blue that gets highlighted there. So that thing is our input type file button, but that is hidden. We cannot actually see that. Instead, we see the select file button that is actually on top of that. So in this scenario, what we should instead do is target the input type file element. So the input type file element is basically this one, right? And it has an uploaded file_1 name and up file_1 ID. All right, so you must be thinking that, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and use this ID right here, which is up file_1, and then it should work because technically we have this input type equals file, and this is the same input that we targeted in our previous example, right? So actually, let's try this out. I'm going to use this up file_1, and this is our input type file element, and we're going to try to run our test using this and see if this would work for us. So here I'm going to change my input_1 to up file_1, and then I will run my test just as we were running before. So it opened up my test, and right over here, once again, it's not doing anything. So we can wait a couple more seconds to see if it actually uploads something. Nope, it did not upload anything, and we should expect an error message. There you go, we got an error message. And the error message that we got, if I notice, it says the upload file over here element is not visible. And which element is not visible? Well, this one, up file 1. So this is the one that we just put in here. It's saying that the element is not even visible. So this time it's not actually going over here. It's not actually throwing us error here. It's throwing us error right over here because it's saying, hey, the element that you're targeting, it's not even visible on the page. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to head back to Chrome. So what it's saying is this element right here, it's not visible. And yes, it's obvious, right? Because we don't see it on the screen. Instead, what we see is the select file. So that time when we targeted select file, it was able to find it, except it could not really upload on that. Because to upload on something, it needs to find the input type file. So I know this is complicated, right? Because you need to target this element, but this element is not visible. Instead, the other element is visible, but when you're targeting that, you cannot really upload anything on that. So this is what you will find in all the majority of the modern websites. So to actually overcome this, what we will have to do is make sure that our input element is actually visible so that we can see it on the screen. Now, this will vary from websites to website on how they have actually implemented it. Some websites typically just reduce down the opacity to 0. Other website will throw in some classes. Some other website will have some other mechanism. So you will need to figure it out what exactly is happening with your particular website or where your input element is, and then make that visible on the screen, and then you should need to target that. So for this particular website, you can notice that they have this class called file input hidden. Now, if I get rid of this class right over here, all right, so there you go. The moment I did that, I can see the choose file input field right over here. Now I can click on this choose file and kind of upload the same file as we were doing in our previous example. So this is what we need to do. We need to get rid of our class. Now, once again, like I'm telling you, this is specific to this website that I need to get rid of this class. And the moment I get rid of the class, right now you can see there's nothing here. Class is empty. And the moment I do this, I can actually see this choose file input field here. So right now what I did is I actually manually went in and got rid of the class, but I obviously refresh. So after I refresh, everything comes back and I can see the file input hidden back over here. So what I need to do is figure out a way to get rid of this class so that I can see the input file field. And once I can see that, I can upload whatever I need to upload there. And we can do this by manipulating our DOM and using some JavaScript code. So if I go over here to my console, and here what I can do is, like, we can actually test this out. So I'm going to do document. So basically access the document there and then do get element by ID. And then here I'm going to pass in my ID, which was upfile_1. And then I'm going to do class list. So basically I need to get rid of the class list dot remove. And as you can see, it's actually autofilling for me. So I'm going to put that in and then get rid of this file input hidden. So basically what I'm doing is, if I go back here, I have this upload file 1. Basically the up file 1 is my ID. So I'm just accessing this ID and then I'm getting rid of the class list, which is file input hidden. So if I go back, I'm doing document get element by ID. This is my ID dot class list dot remove, and then remove whatever class I need to remove. And if I hit enter now, there you go. Right over here, we can see our input field again. So this is what we need to do. In our test, we need to pass in this script. Once we pass in the script, we will see this input field, and then we can go ahead and actually upload whatever we need to upload there. And this is the exact reason why this one is a little bit complicated than the previous example. But once you figure out how this works, it's gonna be same for you for any website that you will test in. You just have to figure it out what exact mechanism would work in to see this input field again. Once you can see this input field, you can go ahead and implement that same JavaScript code in your test. So let's head back to PyCharm and actually implement this. Okay, so I'm back here in PyCharm, and right before when we were actually uploading our file, I'm going to make some changes here. So here I'm just going to say add JS code, or basically add JavaScript code. And then what I'm going to do is create a new variable, call this one remove my hidden class. And here we need to put the same script that we copied from our browser. So I'm going to put that over here. So that is document.getElementID, passing the ID.classList.remove, and then ID over here. So I've stored this into a variable. And then the good thing with SeleniumBase is to actually implement a JavaScript code, there's an inbuilt method which is called add.jsCode. The moment I do that, I can see that add.jsCode is there. And what this does is it goes ahead and add the JavaScript code on the actual while it is running the script. So it will go in, it will come to this step, it will implement this entire script, and then it will go ahead and do whatever it needs to do next. So I'm going to pass in our class here. So this right thing here. So it's going to implement this entire JavaScript code. Once it does that, it will see this up file 1, which is our ID. It's going to be visible on the page because we just got rid of the class list that was making it hidden. So once it is visible, it can easily go ahead and upload the file. So let's test this out and see if this would work for us. Okay, so it's opening up over here. And as you can see, we can see this input field. Now it's uploading right over here. And there you go. It uploaded successfully. And we have our test working as well. So that's great. That's exactly what we wanted. We added this JavaScript code to get rid of this hidden class. And after that, we were able to go ahead and successfully implement this. So to quickly recap, we looked at two examples. The first one was a straightforward example where we can see the input field. And using that, what we were doing is just passing in the choose_file method, which was going in and actually uploading our file after we have provided the file path as well as the file ID. Then we clicked on the upload button to actually upload whatever we want and then assert the text. Now this one was a straightforward example. However, the typical examples that you will run into with the modern websites would be something like this, where you would need to play around with the JavaScript code to get your input field visible. And once that is visible on the screen, you can actually go ahead and implement the same way that you just did on a previous example. And for that specifically, we use the add.js code. Now, once again, this add.js code is specific to the SeleniumBase framework. So if you want to learn more about the SeleniumBase framework, make sure to check out my tutorial series. I will add the link for that in the description below. But if you're not using SeleniumBase framework, you have to figure out other way to inject the JavaScript code in your test. And once you do that, you can follow along with the rest of your steps. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, guys? In this video, we will learn how we can use setup and teardown methods to optimize our test even further. So if you're not familiar with setup and teardown concepts, essentially it allows you to run certain steps before and after your actual test. So when you run the setup method, it will trigger the steps before your test will run, and the teardown will run the steps after your test has finished. Now let's take a look at the tests that we have created so far and see how these setup and teardown can be helpful for us. Alright, so I'm here in PyCharm and I'm on the home test class. So we created this in one of our previous videos. And here I have two tests. One is the test homepage. Another one is the test menu links. Now, what we're going to do is create a setup method here and then take a look at how the setup method can help optimize our test. So to create a new setup method, I can do this using def and then type in setup here. Now, right here, what I'm going to do is just try to print something out. So I will do print and then say running before each test. So this setup will run before each test. So it's going to run before this one, and then it's going to run before this. I'm just printing it out just to show it to you. And then I will do the same thing for the teardown as well. So I'm going to do teardown, right? And this would be running after each test. All right. So just by doing this, what we're actually doing is overriding the setup and teardown methods of the SeleniumBase class. But we don't want to do that. Instead, what we need to do is actually call the SeleniumBase setup and teardown. And once we get all the functionality of SeleniumBase setup teardown, then we will go ahead and actually run whatever we need to do from there. So to actually take advantage of the existing base case class and the setup there, I'm just going to do super. The super will go to my parent class, and my parent class is this base case over here. And then I'm going to do setup. So that's it. So the moment I do this, what it's going to do is actually go to the setup class of the base case. If I go there, you can notice here the base case has the setup method, and then it will actually go ahead and basically do whatever it needs to do over there. And after that, we can go ahead and actually run our test. Same way, I'm going to call the teardown over here as well. So for teardown, just we have to call it at the bottom. So I'm going to do super and teardown. So this autofilled for me. I'm just going to get rid of this because we don't need it anymore. And if I open this up, you can see the teardown method of the base case class as well. All right, so this is good. Now let's try to run a test and see if our setup and teardown methods will get called when we will run our test. So I'm going to run the test by doing pytest -k and then provide the class name, which is home test. And then I will also pass in the -s flag so that it actually prints out on the console. And I'm going to hit enter. All right, so our test has finished running. And if I move this up, you can see 2 passed. And over here, you can notice that it says running before each test. And we saw this again running before each test. And then we have twice running after each test as well. And the reason for that is because it ran 2 tests. The first one is over here, test_homepage. And the second one is here, which is test_menu links. So before each test, it actually triggered the setup method over here. And after each test, it triggered the teardown method. So now that we know that we have some mechanism to perform certain steps before and after our test, we can take a look at how we can actually use this power to optimize our test. So for this, what I'm going to do is take a look at what exactly are we repeating over here at the moment. So the first thing that you can notice is we have this opening homepage. This is what we are doing, right? So for this one, we are opening the homepage, and for the second one, we are opening the homepage again. So I'm simply going to extract this from here and then paste it over here right after the print statement. Same thing, I'm going to get rid of this from here as well because we don't need it here. So what we are doing here is, since our setup method gets called before each test, we're actually making it to open the homepage. And once it opens up the homepage, we can go ahead and perform rest of the steps. Same thing is over here as well. So for the teardown, we don't really have anything at the moment because after our test is finished, we are not really doing anything specifically. So we're going to leave this empty for now, but later on, we're going to actually take advantage of both setup and teardown. So I'm just going to run this to see if a test would run and whether it would open up the homepage after each test. All right, so once again, our test finished running and both of them passed. We can also see the console statements here. But if you notice, what it actually did was it opened up the homepage every time. So first time when it ran this test, it opened the homepage, then it performed this step. Same thing, it did it for the next test as well. So typically this would be a really common use case. So like if you need to open a URL and you need to do that for each of your tests, you can put that in your setup. But another most common use case for this would be if you need to, let's say, log in and log out after each test. Maybe you have certain use case where you need to make sure that you're logged in and then you perform your actual test. And then you want to make sure that you log out after your test is finished. So for that, let's see how we can implement that over here. So we're going to take advantage of both setup and teardown using the login and logout. So I'm going to head over to Chrome to actually show you how the login and logout works in our website, and then we're going to implement it in our test. Alright, so I'm back here in Chrome and I'm on the practiceautomationbro.com website. And over here, if you notice my account, if I click on that, it actually opens up this login and registration page. Now let's imagine anything that I want to do, I want to make sure I'm logged in and then I'm actually doing that. So to log in, I'm just going to put in the test user over here and I'm going to put the test user 123 password. And then I'm going to log in. So I'm logged in now, and as you can see, it says hello test user. So that means we are logged in, and I can click on this logout link over here to actually log out. But you can imagine that once we are logged in, we can go here and maybe do something with our test, add some stuff in here to the cart, make some changes and actually run whatever tests we need to run, come back to my account, and then we can click on that logout link again to actually log out of our actual test. All right, now I'm back here on the login screen. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and implement this with our test so that before each test, we're logging in and after each test, we're logging out. So let's go ahead and do that. So for our setup, what we need to do is before opening the home page, I wanted to actually go ahead and open up the My Account page. So here basically follow the login steps. So I'm just going to type in here login. So here instead of typing all the code out, I'm just going to paste it over here and then explain it to you what exactly we are doing there. All right, so this is my login steps. So what I'm doing is I'm opening the page. So instead of going to the base homepage, I'm going to the My Account page. From there, I'm adding in the text on the username field, which is test user. Then I'm adding in the text for password, which is test user 123. Then I'm clicking the login button, and then I'm verifying whether the logout link actually shows up. So that's my login steps. Now I know that you can actually optimize this even further by creating it a separate method and then just calling the method over here. But that's not the point of this video. Point of the video is how actually you can take advantage of setup and teardown methods. So this is our login steps right over here. I'm going to do the same thing for logout as well. I'm just going to copy that and paste it over here. So that would be right after this, and then paste it here. All right, so from our logout, what I'm doing is I'm going back to the My Account page. Then I'm clicking on the logout link. After that, I'm making sure that this element login element visible is actually there. Now this is duplicated. I'm going to remove that. So this login button should be back again, because obviously once we are logged down, we should be able to see the login button. So one thing to keep in mind with the teardown is you need to make sure that your super.teardown is actually called at the very bottom. Like you cannot do this logout here and then just kind of run this over here, because that would not work. Instead, you need to make sure that this is called right before the teardown. So you can do whatever you want here, and then you can call the teardown, which will trigger the Selenium-based teardown of actually closing down the browser and then shutting your driver instance. So there you go. We have our login already here, and then we have a logout too. Now let's run our test to see if it will go ahead and implement the login and logout after each test. So I'm going to hit enter again to run our test. So this time, if you notice, it's going to the My Account page. It's logging in over here. And then now it's logged in. Now it will go ahead and implement the test. Now it's going back to logout, which is my account, and then actually logging out over here. And then this will do the same thing for the other test as well. All right, so there you go. Our tests finished running and 2 of them passed again. We can see the console scripts, as well as we could have seen that it ran the login and logout after each test. So this is the power of setup and teardown. Now this depends on from use case to use case. You might want to do something else with your setup method, or you might want to do something else with your teardown. One common steps would be with teardown is taking a screenshot after your test has finished running. You could probably do that as well. And we will look into the screenshot later on in one of our future videos. But for now, I just wanted to show you how setup and teardown works. Now you can copy the same thing, which is setup, teardown, and then actually paste it in some other test so that it can go ahead and do the same thing there. And you don't need to do both setup and teardown. You could just do setup, or you could just do teardown as well. So to quickly wrap it up, you can use the setup method to trigger some steps before each test. And you can use the teardown method to trigger some steps after each test. And the example we looked at over here was one is opening up the home page, another is actually login for our setup, and then logging out for our teardown as well. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we're going to be learning about page object model. We'll talk about what it is and what are some of the advantages of using page object model. And we will also implement page object model in our existing test. So let's get started. So page object model is a design pattern that makes it easier for us to maintain our code and reduce code duplication. So it allows you to abstract any page related information away from your actual test. So to put it simply, all the selectors we were using within our test, we can extract that away and put it in a separate file, which we can then reuse whenever we want. So some of the advantages of page object model are that it provides you with code separation. So like I said, it keeps your test and locators separate, and it makes your code clean and it's easier to understand and maintain. It also provides you with a single source or repository where you're storing your locators. So all your locators are stored in one place. So whenever you want to make a change, you just go to that repository and make that update over there, and it gets updated everywhere else. So your test becomes short and optimized, and we can reuse our page object methods. And then it also improves the readability significantly and makes it easier for the new team members to start writing tests by following existing structure. Alright, so let's head over to PyCharm and implement page object model for our existing test. Alright, so I'm back here in PyCharm, and over here we have created this test so far. So I'm on the test_home. So here we have some selectors that we have put in over here. So you can see this custom logo link. get started, and then we have some more over here, like write this one over here too. So the first thing we're going to do we're going to extract the selectors and put them in a separate class, and then we're going to reuse that over here so that we're calling it directly from that class instead of hard coding it over here. So the very first thing we're going to do is create a new Python package and call that one page objects. So I'm going to do right click here and do new and create a Python package, and I will need this one page underscore objects. Okay, so it's added over here. And from here, I'm going to create my new file, which is going to be a Python file, and I will name this one home underscore page. So we're creating our home page class, and we're going to be storing all our selectors over there in that home page class. So we're going to create a new class, and we will call this one home page. And now over here, we can start storing our selectors. The first one that we need to store, if we can come over here, is our test underscore homepage. We're using this thing right here. So this is where I'm asserting our logo. So this is my logo link. So I will add that over here. I'm going to do logo underscore icon. So I'm creating a new variable, and that in that variable, we're going to store this selector. I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here. So that's my first one. I'm going to do the same for the other ones too. Okay, so we have added all our selectors over here. Now, just by doing this, we can go ahead and actually implement page object model. So what we just did, we created our new page and we stored all the selectors and locators over here. So now what we can do is we can import homepage class over here and start using all the selectors that we have stored over here. So we can do that by doing from page objects dot homepage import homepage. So we are going to the page object directory. From there, we are selecting our homepage file, and then we are importing the homepage class, which was what we named over here. So then we're going to take this homepage and start replacing our selectors right over here. So I'm going to do homepage dot, this is my logo icon. So I'm going to change this over here. Same thing. I'm going to do this for this H1. So that's homepage dot heading. This one is changed, and I will do the same thing over here. So this is homepage dot, what was this, copyright, and change that here. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh yeah, I missed this one. I'm going to do homepage dot get started button, and then change this as well. And then the last one right over here. So this is my homepage dot menu links. Okay, so just by doing this, the advantage we have now is that we have stored all the selectors in a one place, which is right over here. So the advantage of this is, let's say if in future one of these selectors changes, instead of let's say this class, someone implements another new class and we need to change that logo icon class. So rather than going one by one in each test and figuring out where have you actually used that logo icon selector, you can directly come to the home page, and then here you can simply change it to the new selector. And the moment you do that, wherever you have used this logo icon by the help of homepage class, that will actually get updated automatically. So you're not coming in here and actually changing your test. Rather, you're going to your repository, which is your page object repository, and then you're making the change over there. So this makes your code really reusable, and actually it makes it even more optimized because you're not going ahead and making hundreds of changes, rather one change that is getting implemented in 100 different places. So I know right now it seems small, but just imagine when you're working with multiple files. So you have your files, let's say tens of hundreds of files, and you have implemented all the selectors everywhere. Then when you actually make these kind of changes, it becomes pretty significant. That's why having this page object really helps you optimize your test. Alright, so far we have actually used our homepage class to store all our selectors. Another thing that we can do over here is actually start storing some methods. So basically some helper method that is specific to the homepage class. So to give you an example, if you go over to this test underscore home file, and if I open up the setup right here, you can see we have this open homepage. So we are opening our homepage. So instead of let's say hard coding this over here, what I can do is create a new method for this. So I can come in here and I can do def open page. Then I will do self.open, and then here I will pass in the actual URL. So I will copy that right over here and then paste that right here. Now I can go to my test underscore home, and over here instead of doing self underscore open, I can do homepage dot open page. I can do this. So this will essentially do the same thing, and it will open up my homepage. So let's try to run this and see if this works for us. So there you go, our test is actually passing. So it's actually going in and opening the page by just using that homepage.open page, which basically opens up this page right over here. Now, one thing I forgot to mention was I actually didn't add this self parameter before, so I added that afterwards. So I added this self parameter and then I run the test. And the reason for that is because our open home page actually takes in this self parameter. Now, in order to avoid this, if we don't need to pass in this self parameter again, what we can instead do is we can import the base case class over here. So the thing that we were doing right over here, I can just copy this entire thing, paste it here. And then I will, in my home page, I will pass this our base case class like this. So this way, the advantage we get is I can come in here and get rid of this base case here and then just say use my home page. So now we're inheriting home page and then home page inherits our base case class. And then what I can do is I can replace homepage.openPage to self.openPage. And this would do the same thing if we run a test. So personally to me, this looks a little bit more cleaner. So we'll stick with this option. So what we just did is we actually moved our base case class to our homepage, and then we actually inheriting that over here. And then instead of inheriting base case class in our home test, we're inheriting the homepage class. So what else we can do? So well, another thing we can do is, let's say if you want to move this entire login thing over there, I can just copy this entire thing. I can create a new method, call this one login. And then here I can paste the entire thing. Now this is doing all of these things over here. Now ideally what you would want to do is all the selectors that you're using over here, you should do the same thing, create a variable for those one, and you need to pass that over here. So to give example, we would do this. I would do username equals, and then create that right here, username. And then I can just do, let's say over here, myself dot like this. And then it will do this. And same thing you can do for password and this button and basically everything else over here. Now I can go to my test and get rid of all of this and just do self.login. And this would actually do my login right here. So if you can notice how clean this looks, we're just doing self.login, self.openPage, and everything else is basically taken care of by our test right over here. But yeah, to make this even more cleaner, you would ideally want to create a new helper method and store your login over there and then call that directly in your actual test_home, or maybe call that in your login over here and then reuse that in your actual test file right here. Now there are multiple ways of how you'd want to implement this, and you can keep optimizing your framework whichever way you prefer better. But I think for now, just for demonstration purposes, like I said, I think this is good enough. Okay, so just to make sure everything is working, let's run our test again and see if it works for us. Okay, so there you go. We ran this again and our test successfully passed. So to quickly review, what we did was we created a new page object directory, and in that we created our homepage class where we stored all our selectors right over here, and then we reused them in our test. And after that, we also created our helper methods, which was our open page and login method over here. You can do the same thing for your teardown as well. You can basically store the logout that we did over here, store that in your actual test, like over here, and then you can call it by doing self.logout. So give this one a shot. You can actually go ahead and actually implement the same thing for test_contact as well as test_upload. So create two new page object files, call this one, let's say contact page, second one, call it an upload page, and store all the helper selectors that we're doing over here, as well as any helper method you want to put in. You can put that in your new page object class. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. Also, you can go to automationbro.com and subscribe to my mailing list to get notified of all my new blogs as well as contents that I put out every week. So that's it for this video, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back everyone. In this video, we will be learning about the wait methods in Selenium Python. So we will be creating an end-to-end test where we will add item to the cart, and then we will change the cart quantity and then verify the updated price of our cart total. So let me show you what that will look like. So I'm here on Practice Automation Bro website. So I clicked on the shop link. As you can see, I'm on the shop page. And what we will do is basically add an item to the cart. So let's take this one example. I'm going to add this one to the cart. The moment I do that, it will basically tell me that the item has been added to the cart. Like right over here, so it says item has been added to the cart, and I can click on this view cart. And this will open up this page for me, which is my cart page. here I can see the current total, which is $120. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to add item to the cart, and then we're going to come here on the cart page. We're going to verify the total. Then we will change the quantity. The moment I change the quantity, after I click the update cart, just notice we see this loading screen. And after the loading screen goes away, the cart total will get updated over here. So as you can see, it's $240 now. So we're going to do this end-to-end scenario where we will add item to the cart, we will change the quantity, and then we will verify the total cart over here. And while we will be doing this, we will run into some issues, and then we will take a look at how we can fix those issues using the new wait methods that we will be learning. So let's get started. Alright, I'm back on PyCharm, and over here I've created a new class and called this one cart test. Now here, if you can notice, I'm using this cart page. So since we learned page object model in our previous video, I implemented that over here. And now moving forward, we're going to be using page objects for all of our new tests. So if I go to the cart page, you can see our cart page has a bunch of selectors right over here, and then have one method over here, which is our open page, which is basically just going to the cart page right over here. So pretty straightforward. And as you can also notice that we are importing base case over here, which is part of our Selenium base class. So over here, I have two methods. One is my setup method where I'm opening the shop page. And then from the shop page, I've created a new test, which is add item to the cart. So here we have a couple of things we need to do. So I've added in all the comments that we actually need to do here. So we're going to add the item to the cart. We're going to assert the product is added to the cart. Then we will open the cart page, and then we will get the current subtotal. Then we will change the cart quantity. So from 1, we're going to change it to 2. And then we're going to assert that the subtotal should be different than the original subtotal. So let's say if the subtotal is $400 before, when we change it to 2, then it should be $800. Alright, so I hope you understand what this test will be. So let's go ahead and start implementing this. Alright, so let's get started with the first step, which is add item to the cart. And if I go to the cart page, you can notice that I've created this selector already. What this will do is it will click on the add to cart button to add this particular item to the cart. So we're going to click on this, and we can do that by doing self.click. And then I'm going to pass in the actual selector. So that's going to be self.converse add to cart button. Then after that, I'm going to assert that the product is added to the cart. So let's see how that will work. So if I go back to my Chrome, and over here, when I'm going to add item to the cart, so let's see if I'm adding this one, I'm going to do add to cart. And the moment I do this, you will notice on the top, this changes to 1. So this is what we're going to assert, that this cart icon over here shows us 1 over there. That means 1 item has been added. Now I've already got the selector for this one, so we're going to just add that over there. Let's head back to our test and actually implement that. So here we're going to assert our text, and we have looked into this in the previous video. So to assert a text, we're going to do self assert text, and then this will ask me what text I want to assert. So here I want to assert 1 because we're adding 1 item to the cart, and then I'm going to pass in the actual selector. So here my selector is going to be self, and that's going to be cart count text. So it's going to be this one, which is right here. So here I'm just simply verifying the actual total count of my particular cart item. So I'm going to go back here. Now what we will do is we will just run this part to see if this works successfully for us. So I will do pytest-k test underscore add to cart, or I can just do this add to. Okay, so this is opening the shop page. It's adding this item to the cart, and then our test, let's see. Yeah, our test passed. So it asserted the text, which is basically self cart count text. It asserted that and made sure that the 1 item has been added to the cart. So that's good. So everything is working here so far. The next thing we're going to do is open the cart page. Now to open the cart page, I already have created a helper method here, which is open page. So we're going to use that. So I'm going to do self.open page. And since we are on the cart test, the open page refers to opening the cart page. So this will open up my cart page. I don't have to pass in the URL because that is already provided over here. So by now we have actually added the item to the cart, and then we have moved over to the cart page. Then we're going to get the current subtotal. So to get the current subtotal, if I come over here, we actually have the subtotal text. So here we are simply going to do get the text of this particular element. So to get the text, we have already seen that before. So I'm going to do text, save it in a new variable, and then do self.getText. And then pass in that selector. So it's going to be self.subtotal text. And then what I will do is print this text to see if what it will print out. So I'm going to do print text here. So let's just run this part and see if it will actually print out the text for our subtotal. I'm going to run this, but this time I'm going to pass in the -s flag so that it actually prints it out on the console. Okay, so our test finished running and it successfully passed. And as you can see, it printed out $150 over here. So it added that item to the cart and then it got the text, which is $150. So that is good. So far everything is actually working. Now the next thing we need to do is change our cart quantity. So for that, what we're going to do is right now our cart quantity shows 1 because we have only added one item. We're going to change this to 2. If I go back to Chrome, just to show you what that looks like, over here, if I come to the cart page, so we have this input field. So we're going to change this input field to 2, and then we will click on the update cart button. There are two things we will do here. First, set the value to 2 here, and then we're going to hit enter because either I can hit enter or click on the update cart button. So we will do that and see if this gets updated for us. Okay, so for this one, I also already have this cart quantity input right here. So we're going to send value to this one, basically change the value for this particular input. So here I will do self.setValue. And then here I will pass in the selector. So it's going to be self.product quantity input. And then I'm going to say what text I want to pass in here. So here I want to pass in 2 because that's what I'm changing. And then I'm going to click on the update cart button, which is right over here, right? This thing, update cart button. So I will do self.click and not this one. It's going to be self.click. And then pass in the selector, which is self.update cart button. And then finally, we have this assert subtotal to be different than the original subtotal. So what we will do is I'm going to add in my assertion here. So I'm going to do assert. Actually, this is going to be self.assert. So this will be self.assert. Instead of doing assert equal, we will do assert not equal. And then I'm going to pass in my text. So this text at this moment, it's, let's see, what was it? It was $150. So I'm going to make sure the $150 should not equal to the new text. And that one's going to be $300. So I'm going to do text, which is $150, should not equal. And here I'm going to get the new text. Or actually, to make it simpler, what I can do is create this updated text. And then I'm going to try to get the updated text here. And I can do the same way, which is I was doing over here. And then just change this to updated text right here. So our current text, which is this one, should not equal to the updated text. This is what we're saying with this. Now let's run this test to see if it will work this time. And before doing that, I'm going to print out updated text to see what is actually it will printing out over here for us so that we can see the updated text. All right, so this time our test actually failed. And let's take a look at the assertion error. So the assertion error we have is $150 is not equal to the $150. So that's weird, right? Because we were expecting it to be $300 because over here we actually told it to change the quantity to 2. So that should have changed it and actually printed out the $300 over there. So let's scroll up to see what exactly happened. So over here, you can notice that the first time we printed it out, which was our current text right here, was $150. So that is good. But the next one, which is our updated text, that printed out and that is also $150. So that is weird, right? Because we were expecting it to be $300 here and that should have worked for us. So what exactly happened? Well, let's go back to Chrome and take a look at what happens when we actually click that button. So when I change this to 2 and click on update cart, you notice we get this loader and it's actually taking time to change this text to 300. So what happened is by the time this is actually loading, so if I switch it back, right now my text is still $300. So what Selenium is doing, it's actually going in and trying to get the text right away. So the moment we change this to 2 and we click update cart, the next step it's doing is getting the total text. So the total text right now was still $150. And that's the problem we are running into over here. Now this is one of those scenarios where you have to specifically mention to wait X amount of seconds so that you can get your text or basically whatever value that you're trying to get updated and then actually verify that. So in our scenario, we need to tell the browser that, hey, wait a couple of seconds until this text change. Once the text change, get the text and then give it back to me. So let's see how we can actually do that. I'm going to go back to our test. So right over here, we are actually changing the cart, right? We're clicking on this click button, which is updating our cart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, wait few seconds, basically. That's all I'm going to say. Now there are a couple of ways to wait for this. The first method, which is I would tell you to not use, is actually time.sleep. And here I'm going to say that sleep for X amount of seconds. So let's say we want it to sleep for 5 seconds. And then I need to make sure that I'm importing time. So I can do that by just scrolling all the way up. And then I'm just going to do import time. So now this error went away. Let's run this and see if our test would actually work by just doing this. Okay, so this time our test still failed. And as you can see, it says 150 is still not equal to 150. Now, technically, this should have passed because we did wait for that loader screen to go away and then it actually for us to verify this text. Now, this one is a bit weird behavior and it's only specific to this test. You don't really have to worry about this, but what I'm going to do is just add in a couple of extra steps here. So right after when we are setting this input to 2, we also need to hit enter. So I'm going to do self.sendKeys. And then here, I'm just going to do the same thing, product quality input. Now, after entering 2, I'm just going to hit enter. So to hit enter, I need to do keys.return. Now, this keys comes from the Selenium library, so I need to import that. So what I will do is I will go all the way up. And here, I'm going to do from selenium.webdriver.common.keys import keys. So here now what I'm doing is I'm changing the quantity to 2 and after that I'm hitting enter. So right over here I'm hitting this return key, which is basically hitting enter, and then I'm clicking on the update card button. So now let's run this to make sure this works. Alright, so as you can see our test passed this time, and if you notice in the browser also it actually waited and then the text changed, and here as you can see it was 150 before and now it is $300. So it's actually working as we expected it to be. So this part right over here, I know this was a bit weird. So you don't have to really worry about this part, but the main thing was we use this time.sleep to actually wait for a few seconds. Now this is a really bad practice. We should not use time.sleep. So the reason for that is because we are now waiting 5 seconds for anything to do. So basically our test is stopped for 5 seconds and after that we're actually doing something. Like let's say what if this updated text got changed after 2 seconds? We are still wasting a 3 second, right? Now, this seems really small if you're just considering it as 3 seconds, but just imagine if you're using this in everywhere and pretty much all of your tests, then you're wasting 3 seconds like pretty much for all of your tests, right? And that will eventually add up and it will accumulate to a lot of time that you're just wasting doing this by using this time.sleep. Instead, what it's recommended is to wait until this text is updated. So we have specific wait methods in Selenium that we can use. What that will do is wait for this specific text to get updated and then we will actually go ahead and move on to the next step. So let's see how that will work. So I'm going to comment this out. Now, if you remember when we were actually clicking on that button, we were seeing that loader. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to wait for that loader to be completed. And the way that would work is, if we come back here, I'm going to add in a new text comment. So I'm going to say wait for loading to be completed. And then here, I'm going to wait for that particular element to come up. So I'm going to wait for that loading screen to come up. And then once it's up, I'm going to wait for it to go away. So there are 2 methods that we're going to use, which is wait for the element to be visible and then wait for element to be not visible. So let's do that. So we're going to do self.wait for. And as you can see, there are a lot of wait methods here that we can use. The one that we're going to be using is wait for element to be visible. And then also this one, wait for element to be not visible. The first one here, I'm going to say the loading overlay, which is this loading screen. I'm going to say self.loading overlay. So I want it to come to the screen. So once it is on the screen, then I also want it to go away. So then I will say self.wait for element. And this one's going to be not visible. So it's going to be not underscore visible. And then same selector that we added over here, we're going to add this here. Now, if you're wondering why are we not just verifying this directly, and why are we even just verifying whether it is coming on the screen? Well, the reason is, let's say if I click on this button and right away if I'm checking, hey, that the loading screen should not be on the screen. This and between the time between this and this to come up, there might be a couple of milliseconds that it's actually taking. So what this will do is right away it's going to check whether, oh, is there a loading screen? It will say that there is no loading screen and then it will move on to our next test. So because of that, we will still see $150 here. So that's why we need to make sure that we are seeing the loading screen. Once it comes up on the screen, then we are verifying that the loading screen actually goes away. So now let's run this test to see if this will work for us. Okay, so our test finished running. And as you can see, this time our test passed again, and we can see it was 150 before, now it's and 300 over here afterwards. So just by using this wait for element, we're actually now waiting for that loading screen to come up. Now that loading screen can, let's say, can take just 1 second, or it can say take, let's say, 5 to 10 seconds. Doesn't really matter. As long as we're waiting for that particular element, our test will wait. Now there is a certain limitation to this. Like by default, SeleniumBase has, I think, 6 seconds that it waits for. You can change the default options. But yeah, so basically it will wait for that to come up, and then it will wait for that to go away. And if I click on this wait for element visible to show you what it's actually doing, you can see here. So it's actually doing something as wait for element. So it checks for that particular timeout. And once the timeout hits, and you can actually pass in the timeout too. So right here, you can say, oh, wait for X amount of seconds. So I can basically come in here and then do comma and then actually add in my timeout here. So that could be like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But here I'm just going to keep it by default, whatever it is. Okay, so we looked into 2 ways. Basically, one was this bad practice, time.sleep, and then this way, which is wait for element to be visible. And then actually we also looked into the wait for element to be not visible. Another thing that we can do is, instead of making sure that element is there, we can just verify that for the text to be there. So we can wait for that particular text to come up. And so the good thing is SeleniumBase provides us with another nice helper method which we can use, and that is self.waitForText. So let's see how that works. So here I'm going to just simply change this to self, actually right over here after the print statement. I will do self.waitForText. The wait for text takes a particular text here. So I'm going to pass it 300. And then I'm going to say it should wait for this text to be updated. So I'm going to do self.subtotalText and actually add in dollar here, because this should be exactly the same way that is over here. It's going to be 300.00. Now let's run this to see if this will get updated for us. And I'm going to comment these 2 out right here. Okay, so as you can see, our test failed here. And the reason for that, well, this was my mistake. Because if you notice, the test actually waited for that loader to go away. But the problem was, or basically not the loader, the actual text to change. But the problem was we are verifying this with updated text right here. So this thing, we are verifying it with this. Instead, if I just move this up, I'm going to take this entire thing and move it up here. So it is just the where we need to actually put this in. So we are going to first wait for this text to change, and then we're going to get the text for that particular thing, and then we'll compare it here. So I was actually comparing it first, and then I was waiting for the text. So the order was wrong there. So let me run this, and now it should pass. All right, there you go. So this time it passed again. So here we are simply, as you can see, we were just waiting for the text to change. And then that was pretty straightforward, right? We were saying, okay, our assertion was to make sure the text should not be same. So we are waiting for that text to change to $300. And then we were actually just basically comparing right over here. Now, depending on your use case, you might prefer to use wait for element visible or not visible, or you might prefer to use just wait for text instead. Now, there are other wait elements too, such as wait for element to be present, wait for element to be not present. So depending on whatever you want to do, you can use those wait commands for your particular use case. But yeah, one key thing I want to really emphasize before we end this video, that you should never use hard-coded sleeps like this over here, because this is really, really bad for you. Instead, try to always use these kind of wait commands, which are only waiting for that particular situation to get completed. Once the moment that situation gets completed, it goes and moves to the next steps of your test, rather than waiting for the entire 5 or 10 seconds. So just as a side note, this is also a common interview question that gets asked all the time during automation interview. So that's why you should really know why you should not use time.sleep or basically any kind of hard-coded sleep, and instead why you should probably prefer to use wait commands instead. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And also don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, I will show you how you can handle errors elegantly within your test. Before we see how we can do that, let's talk about why we need to handle errors in the first place. Usually, if there's an error within your test, you would want the test to fail, and that is true for the 95% of the scenarios. But you will run into certain scenarios where you will encounter an error and you would want to handle that error differently. So instead of just throwing the error and failing the test, you would want to do something else instead. So for example, if you're trying to find an element and if that element is not there, you want to do something else instead there. You might probably want to verify some text. You might probably want to go in and retry the entire scenario, depending on whatever your use case is. Or let's say if you're trying to click on a button, and if that button is not clickable for whatever reason, you would instead want to just refresh the page and try something else instead. And these are all unique scenarios, but based on your application, you might run into them once in a while, specifically if you're working on a really dynamic application. Let's take a look at one of the scenarios that we will be covering in this video. So I'm here on the Practice Automation Bro website, and on that I've opened up the shop page. Now within the shop page, we have the search product field over here. So if I click on that, and if I type in up any product, so for example, from here, if I type in toys, I'm going to enter toys here, and I will click on the search button. What this will do is it will open up this page, which is the toys page, and it will give me all this information related to that product. So this is one of the use case, and this is what we're going to be testing. But since this is a dynamic application, the shop product is being handled by, let's say, some of your sales team or someone who's actually handling this website. Now, based on the product quantity, the particular item might be in the actual shop list, or it might not be in the shop list. For example, if all your toys have been sold out, they might take out the toys entirely from here. So when you will be actually searching for that, instead, it will just tell you that the product is not available in this particular website at the moment. So you know those kind of websites that you see where you search for a product, so instead of seeing the product, you end up seeing that, oh, the product is not available, or it's out of stock, or something like that. So that's a pretty common use case that you will run into. So here, to give you an example, let's say if I want to search for a keyboard, or maybe sunglasses or something, which is, I know that is not here in this my product list right now. And if I hit search here, let's see what happens. So when I do that, it actually tells me that the no products were found for that particular selection. So because I know that the keyboard or whatever that I'm trying to search for here is actually not available, so instead it gave me this error. Now this is a really unique scenario, because let's say if you're creating your automation test and you're searching for something, let's say your toys over here, and you know right now the toys are there on the website and you're able to go to that page. But maybe in future, when it actually goes out of stock, it won't even be there. Now I know there are many ways to actually handle the scenarios more elegantly, where you would want to make sure that you're only searching for the product that are there. You might want to mock your products. You might want to do something scenarios that are basically will actually handle this better ways. But let's say if you're not able to do all of those things, rather you're just working with an existing application where you cannot control the products that are being available on the website. So in that case, what would you do? Because you're going to search for something and you're going to run into that issue where the product is sometimes there, some other times it's not there. So let's take a look at what will happen when we will actually try to implement this within our code. Okay, so I'm over here in PyCharm, and in the PyCharm, what I did is I created a new class. I call this one shop test, and the shop test basically inherits the shop page class. If I open up shop page just have basically some of my selectors, and it just have a single method which is opening the shop page. So really straightforward, nothing fancy here. And if I go to test shop over here, so right now all I'm trying to do is open that page. Now what we will do is add in our test for searching the product and then asserting the product image. So to search for the product, I'm just going to add in the search product thing, which is over here, which is search input. And then I'm going to click on the search button. So I will do self.send keys to actually send some text there. And here I'm going to add in my selectors, which is my self.search input. And then the selector that I'm going to search for is toys here, which is fine. And then the next thing we're going to do is click on the search button. So I will do self.click. Then I will do self.search button, and I will click on that. So this will search for toys, and then it will click on the search button, which is good. And that's exactly what we did when we were manually testing this. Then I want to assert the product image. So this is the image that comes up when the new website or the new page that opens up. And on that new page, you can see the actual toys image over there, or basically the product image. So if I'm going to come here, you can see that we have this product image. So I'm just going to verify that. So I will do self.assert element. So I just want to make sure that the element is there, and that's my image element. And here I'm simply going to search for the actual product image. So that is my product image, and I've just added that here. So let's run this scenario to see if this would work for us. So I'm just going to do pytest -k and then search for test_search. So this will run my test search file right over here. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so I ran the test, and as you can see, it successfully passed. So that's pretty good. So it went to the toys page, and from the toys page, it verified the product image. So this is exactly what we wanted. Now let's imagine someone went into the website and they have actually gotten rid of toys from there. So you cannot search for toys anymore. Instead, they have replaced it with some other particular product, right? So what would happen now? So when you will actually run this test, now let's say imagine instead of toys, you probably had sunglasses here. If I type in sunglasses, so I know that on my website, I do not have sunglasses right now. And if I search for that, if I run that right now, let's see what happens. Okay, so it's searching for sunglasses here. And then you see this no products were found matching a selection because we don't really have that product in our website. So this is what we need to test out. Now the error that we will get, it will tell us that, oh, there was the no such exception for this particular text that you were looking for. So which was my product image. I was looking for that, and it's saying that, oh, that element is actually not there. And that is expected because the product is not there, hence that element is not there as well. So what would you do if you're dealing with this dynamic behavior? Now, like I mentioned, an ideal way of handling this is making sure that the product you're searching for is always there on your website. But let's say if you cannot control that, instead you would want to make sure that, hey, okay, if the product is not there, what I would rather want to do is assert for the text, which is basically it's telling me that the no products are available on the website. So I don't want to assert for my actual product image. Instead, I want to assert that the products that are there on the website are not available. So the text that we were seeing, which was no products were found matching a selection, we would rather want to assert on that instead. But what's happening is, while we're actually trying to do that, right over here, we just get the no such element exception. So how can we handle that scenario that if we get this exception, we would want to do something else instead? So I know this sounds complicated, but this is actually pretty straightforward to implement. So we're going to add in a basic try catch, and we will handle this exception, and we will say, okay, if you run into this particular exception, at this point, what I would want you to do is instead assert for a text. And this is the text that I'm going to be providing you. So that's the scenario that we're going to implement instead over here. So let's take a look at how we can do it. So we are already asserting for that element. And now what I will do is add in a try catch here. So I'm going to say, okay, you try to search for that product image. If you get that product image, everything is good, right? But if you cannot get that product image, and if you run into an exception, and the exception that it's running into, as you can see here, that is no such element exception. So I'm just going to copy that here. And I'm going to say, okay, if you're running into the no such element exception, at that point, what I want you to do is basically assert the text. So here I will say self.assert text. And then I'm going to say, okay, what text it needs to assert. So I will just paste that here, which I already copied before. So this is the text, which is no products were found matching a selection. And then I'm going to add in my actual selector. So my selector, I have already added that before as well, which is no products text. If I hover over to this, you can see that it's actually telling me that there's an unresolved reference for no such element exception. And the reason for that is because my test does not really know about this no such element exception. So I'm getting that error when I'm actually running the test, but my test exactly doesn't really know that there is such kind of exception. So to let my test know that, okay, you need to be aware of this exception, is I can do that by importing that exception from the Selenium library. So let's do that. So I'm going to do from selenium.common.exceptions import, and if I do control space, I can see all the exceptions that I can import. So right now we're only focusing on the no such element exception, but let's say if you're working on a click, or if you're working on some interactable, which is for the input fields or for the button, you can do all of that over here as well. If you're maybe verifying for something is visible on the screen or not, you might be dealing with some kind of opacity where it's reducing or increasing, you can work with element not visible exception, and you can handle that particular use case as well. In my case, I am only working with the no such element exception, so I'm just going to import that. The moment I do that, my error just goes away. So that's pretty good. So let's see what we're doing. So we're trying to make sure that whether our product image is there. It's going to search for that. It says, hey, is the product image there? If it's not there, it will throw me an exception. And the exception it will throw is no such element exception. At that point, I wanted to assert this text. I want to make sure, okay, I know that the product is not there. Maybe something happened. Rather, what I want you to do is just print this out instead. Or basically not print this out, or verify that this text is actually there on the page. All right, so let's add in some print statements here so that we know what exactly is happening. So I will say that this one is within my try block. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, I'm going to print this one out and I will say this is my exception or exception block. Now I'm going to run this test just the way we were running before, but I'm going to add the -s flag so that I can see the printout statements. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now it's searching for sunglasses. And now, as you can see, it's saying no products were found. So we're getting the same error that we were getting before. Well, basically not an error, the same text that's saying the products are not available. And at this point, if I just move this up, there you go. We are seeing one passed. So instead of it failing just the way it failed before, and it told us that there was no such exception, instead what we are getting is passed over here. And you can see here in our print statements, it basically went to the within try block. So it tried to assert for that element. It couldn't find that. After 6 seconds, which was the timeout that we had, it went to the exception block. And then in the exception block, it took a look at that what exactly it's doing. So it's checking that, okay, it's trying to assert for that text, and it found that text for that particular selector. So basically it says, okay, everything looks good. My catch exception that we have over there, everything is working fine there. So it ended up passing our test. So this thing is really powerful, guys, because now you're able to handle exceptions as well. So maybe if there are some particular use case where you're trying to do and you're running into some kind of exception because of dynamic behavior, now you can control it this way. You can add in your try catch block or your try except block, and there you can basically catch your errors based on whatever error you're running into. Now that could be, once again, no such element. It could be whether the button is not clickable or whether that input field is not interactable. You can add all such exceptions over here, and you can deal it a lot more elegantly. So just to make sure our previous use case is still working, if I search for toys over here, and then just run the test quickly to make sure that this is still working fine. At this point, we should not see the exception block. Instead, we should just see the within try block, and then it should just stop over there. So there you go. This time also our test passed, but if you notice, we just see our within try block over here printed out. We didn't see the exception block, because what happens is when it goes to the try block, it knows that there was no error thrown out. Everything looks good. So it just stops the test right here without even entering our except block. And that is exactly what we wanted. Alright, so I hope this helped you out, guys. And if there are some unique scenarios that you're running into and where you need to handle such kind of errors, I hope using this method, you will be able to handle that now. That's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, guys? In this video, we will take a look at how we can take screenshots when a test fails so that we can quickly take a look at the screenshot and identify what was the state of our application at that moment. We will also learn how to take screenshots whenever we want for a certain part of the screen, and these screenshots can then be reviewed by our team for manual validation if needed. So before we get started, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content and you would like to support my work. Alright, so let's get started now. So I'm here on my contact test, and if you remember from the previous video, contact test basically all it does is it goes to the contact form, which is practiceautomation-bro/contact, then it fills all the fields over here, which is the form field, and then it clicks the submit button. After that, it makes sure that this text gets back after the text successfully passed. This is a really simple test that we created in our earlier part of the videos. Now this is what we're going to do. So we're going to run our test and we're going to change our assertion to make our test fail on purpose. For example, what I can do is maybe instead of doing thanks for contacting us, I can just get rid of this and just do it thanks for us. We will be in touch with you shortly. Now we know when we will be running this test will fail. So that's good because when a test fails, we want it to take screenshot. So I will show you how the screenshots work when we will be using the SeleniumBase framework. Now you have to pay attention here because this one is a little bit tricky so that you understand how this is actually working. So let's run this test and then we will show you how we can take screenshots. So to run the test, I'm simply going to run the pytest command. I'm going to do -k and then type in test_contact so that it runs our contact test over here. Then I'm going to hit enter. Now if you're thinking, hey, wait, you haven't really added any mechanism to take screenshot at the moment. Well, yes, I know. So let's run this test just to show you what happens when a test fails. And then we'll take a look at the screenshot part later on. Okay, so let me move this up. And as you can see, our test failed. And over here, it's saying that the element was not visible. Well, technically, that's not really fully true. The element was visible, except the text that we were trying to assert, which was this particular thing. So it's saying the expected text, which this particular thing was not visible after 6 seconds. Okay, so this is good. Our test failed as expected. Now we wanted to take screenshot, right? So how would that work? Remember when I told you that this is a little bit tricky with Selenium base? Well, here's the thing. Let me show you how this works. So I'm simply going to go to this latest logs here. I'm going to open this folder. Now, as you can see, this folder got generated here. And this is the exact test name here. So test_contact page. And here I see 3 files. I have a .txt file, I have a .html file, and I have a .png file. So let's open up the .txt first of all. The moment I open this up, you can see over here it's telling me, all right, what was the page that I was working on? That was the contact page. What was the browser? I was using Chrome, my timestamp. So what exactly was the time when I was running this? And then you can also see that, hey, that this particular line 20 on the test contact page actually failed. And can also see the exception that was raised. So this is the same exception that we were seeing in our console as well. So this is really good because now this file automatically got generated for us. Now it's totally up to you if you want to take advantage of this file. Maybe you can take this and parse it if you want, or you can just keep it this way and you can save it in your artifact, in your CI/CD pipeline, and then you can review that later on as needed. So let's take a look at the next file now. So the next file we have is this page_source.html. Now if I open this up, let's see what's there. So over here we have the entire HTML, or basically the entire DOM of that particular time when our test actually failed. So if I open this up in Chrome, I can click on Chrome here to open this up. And let me move this over here. Okay, so as you can see, this particular screen got opened up. Now this is the exact point of time when our test actually failed. So here they were trying to do the validation. So this was thanks for contacting us, and we got rid of this contacting word from there. So it's actually telling me, okay, this was how your screen looked at that point. Now remember, this is not a screenshot. This is the actual DOM. So basically it copied the entire DOM and it pasted it as this .html file so that we can review what exactly was the state of our test or our state of our page at that point. And then we can basically do our debugging from there on. So this is really powerful. Now we are doing all of this without actually any configuration. So this is inbuilt as part of SeleniumBase Framework. Now that's the reason I really love this framework a lot, because it does all the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is basically go in there and write your test as clean as possible. Now the next thing we have is the screenshot.png. Now there you go. This is also taking the screenshot of that particular page, or basically that part of that screen at that moment when our test failed. So remember when I was telling you that it's a little bit tricky to take screenshot with SeleniumBase Framework? Well, it's actually not. I was just joking, because it's really straightforward to do this. And honestly, it's so straightforward, it seems too good to be true. Because they're doing everything for you, and all you have to do is, once again, just write your test and that's it. They are giving you the entire trace logs over here in the .txt file. They're giving the entire page source for that particular page, and they're also taking screenshot for you. That's it. That's how simple it is to take screenshot with SeleniumBase Framework. There's nothing that you have to do over here. Now all of these logs get generated under the latest_logs. Then it will create a new folder for you. So let's say if your multiple tests are failing, it will create multiple folders, and you're going to see this particular files for those particular folders as well. Now every time you run this, it will go ahead and delete everything that's part of the latest_logs. But if you want to, let's say, not delete this, you can still save them under archive logs there as well. Now let's say if you're running it on your CI/CD, you can also just save it as your artifacts, and then you can review them later on whenever needed. All right, so now let's take a look at our next scenario, which is how to take screenshots whenever we want. Because at the moment, it's taking screenshot when a test fails. And while that is good and it's great for debugging and everything, what we want is maybe there's a scenario where you want to take screenshots for a particular part of your page whenever you're running your test. Now those screenshots can then be later on reviewed by our team members so that they can know what was exactly happening when you ran the test, what was the state of the application, and they might want to just do a quick validation of that as well. So to do that, what we will do is take a screenshot before our form gets filled. So what I can do is over here, we are filling in all our forms. So let's say if you want to make sure how does your form looks when it's empty, and then how does your form look when it's actually filled out. So let's take a look at that and how we can do it. So here, what I will do is to fill in all the fields right over here before this, I'm going to take a screenshot. Now, one thing to remember is when we open up the page, it has to scroll down to go in and actually fill all of these fields. So I'm going to implement the scrolling feature first so that it goes to the form and then it takes a screenshot. Because if I say, hey, take the screenshot right now, it's just going to take the screenshot at the very top of the page where we don't even have the form. So there's a little bit of trick that we need to implement over here. What I will do is add in a new comment, say, scroll to the form. And then I want you to take screenshot or basically scroll to the empty form. Now to scroll it, I'm just going to scroll over to my form. So I will do self.scroll2. And here I'm going to add in the form element. So the form element already copied. It's an ID, which I will just paste in here. And then I want it to take screenshot. Now this one is really, really easy. All I will do is self.save screenshot. And this takes in a name and a folder. The name of the screenshot. So here I'm going to say this is my empty contact form. And then I wanted to say where does it needs to store. So I'm going to say, hey, just store it under the, let's say, new folder. So I can call this new folder custom screenshots. You can name this anything you want, but I'm just going to name it custom screenshot. So we will run the test. It will take a screenshot and it will name it empty contact form, and then it will save it under this custom screenshots folder. Now let's do the same thing when the form is actually filled. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and then I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to do it before I actually submit the form. So this time I don't really need to scroll, right? All we're doing is take screenshot when the form is filled. Then I will remove the scroll to here. And then instead of doing empty contact form, I will change this to filled contact form. And then we're going to store it in the same place, which is custom_screenshots. Okay, so now let's run the test to see if it will store our screenshots. So I'm going to run this test the same way, which is our python-k test contact. But one thing I will do is fix our failure over here. So I'm going to change this to contact us again. Or what was it? It was contacting us. Yeah, thanks for contacting us. And then everything else will remain the same. Okay, so let me run this and see if this works. All right, so we ran our test and it successfully passed. So we can see one passed over here. And one thing to notice it, we have a new folder, which is custom_screenshot. And that's exactly what we named it here. If I open that up, I have two screenshots here, empty contact form and filled contact form, which is amazing because this is exactly what we did over here. So let's open up the first one. There you go. We can see the state of our empty contact form, which looks like this. And if I open up the next one, and we see the state of our filled contact form. Now this one I kind of assumed because what it did was by the time it came down, it was actually only taking the screenshot of this particular part. What we can do is fix it again by scrolling it back up, which is scroll it over here and then take a screenshot again so that we can see the proper screenshot of that full form instead. And that's fine. I'm just going to leave that up to you guys if you want to try it out. But I think for now, you guys understand how this works. So this is how you can take a custom screenshots of a particular element of your screen. And also you also learned how you can take screenshots when a test fails. Now that's another reason, guys, you should use frameworks like SeleniumBase because they have so much pre-baked functionalities already for you. So instead of doing this the old way, we are using your Selenium WebDriver and then basically doing it from Python, everything from scratch, where you're going in and implementing all these functionalities or maybe finding plugins to actually do this for you. Instead, you can just simply use this framework and there you go. They're doing everything for you. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, guys? In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can generate reports with SeleniumBase. So there are two types of reports that we're going to look at. First one is the dashboard report and the other one is the HTML report. The first, I'm going to start off with the dashboard report. We're going to generate that and we're going to take a look at when you should use your dashboard report. And then we're going to generate the HTML report to see when you should be using the HTML reporter. So one of the great things with SeleniumBase is that the reporting functionality comes inbuilt with the framework. So all you need to do is pass in your report parameters when you will be running your SeleniumBase test. So let's see how we can do that. So far we have been running a test by doing pytest, and then we would pass in whichever test we want to run. So in this case, let's say I do pytest-k, and if I want to run, let's say the shop test, so I can pass that in over here. And then if I need to get the dashboard report, all I have to do is just do --dashboard. What this will do is it will generate a dashboard.html report for me in my root directory over here. So let me hit enter and get a test to run and see the report that gets generated afterwards. Alright, so we ran the test and it successfully passed, as you can see over here. And we also see the 6 got deselected because we only ran the first test over here. If I open up this dashboard.html report, so I'm going to right click here and do open in browser and then just select Chrome. So there you go, it generates this dashboard for me. And basically all it's doing is it's telling me the number of tests that are passed. In this case, we only ran one. So we see one passing, and we can also see the one that are untested and the ones that are skipped, as well as the ones that are failed. In our case, we don't really have any of them. And we also have the option to kind of view it in the full screen, print it out if you want, or download it as some images as well. Or if you want, you can also download it as an XLS or the CSV file. And over here, we can see the list of all the tests that are part of our Selenium base. So in our scenario, we have this first one, which is this test that we ran, and the other 6 were actually skipped, or basically they were untested, like we never ran them. Now if I run the entire thing, it's going to show me which ones passed, which one failed, as well as which ones were untested or skipped. So let me run the entire thing to see the kind of report that will get generated. I'm going to head back to PyCharm. And here, instead of just doing PyTest and passing in the individual file, I'm just going to run the entire thing, and then I will pass in the dashboard flag here. Okay, so our test finished running, and as you can see, there are 3 failed and 4 passed. And these failed ones are on purpose because some of the tests that I actually made sure that they will fail so that we can see that on our report. I'm going to go back to the dashboard report and see this time how the report will look like. I'm going to once again do open in browser and then open in Chrome. And here this time we can see the entire report. So we have 1 failed, which is right over here, which is test_contact. And then we have 4 passing and then 2 untested. So the untested ones are because the before block failed. And since the before block failed, none of these 2 tests ran. And this is for the home page. And the before block failed while it was trying to actually log in. So that's why we see 2 untested over here. This is the kind of high-level report that gets generated when you pass in the dashboard flag. Now this report is useful if you just want to get a quick glance of what's going on and how many tests passed or failed. Maybe you want to share this with your management. So this is pretty good in terms of generating it for the dashboard purposes. However, if you need a detailed report of actually knowing what exactly failed, see a screenshot of it, and as well as get some logs of that too, for that we can use the HTML reporter. So let's say if you actually want to figure out what exactly happened and you want to go ahead and debug that, for those purposes the HTML reporter would be preferable. However, if you just want to get a quick overview of how many passed, how many failed, you can generate the dashboard report. So let's head over to our test and see how we can generate the HTML reporter. So for the HTML reporter, we're going to run the test same way, except instead of doing --dashboard, we're going to pass in the HTML flag here, and I'm going to do report.html. Alright, so our test finished running, and as you can see, once again, it says 3 failed and 4 passed. Now over here, if you notice, we have this report.html that got generated. And if I open this one up, same way, open in browser. So this time the report looks a little bit different. So we can see the reports that are actually the ones that are failed. So these 2 over here, so this one failed, as well as I can see the screenshot of it. So why exactly that failed. And then if I actually go back, I can see the logs too. So exactly at what line it failed, as well as what exactly happened. So we can take a look at that. Okay, this is exactly where it failed when it was trying to verify the text. And what was the error as well, we can see that over here too. Same thing for the other ones too, we can see exactly what happened, where it failed, and the ones that passed over here, we can see that over here as well. So the reason you don't see the screenshot for these 2 is because they failed during the before block, and for the before block, they actually maybe don't show you the screenshots. For the ones which actually fails, where the test actually fails, they will show you the proper screenshot for that. In this scenario, the test never ran because the before block failed itself. So here we just see the error that, okay, the before block failed because it couldn't find the element that it was trying to look for. So there you go. If you need to, let's say, debug your test, report.html is really good for you so that you know exactly what happened with your test, why it failed, and when it failed. However, for high-level purposes, you can use just the dashboard to get a quick overview of what exactly happened, and then you can maybe drill down later on to the test report. So keep in mind, you can keep both the reports together. You don't have to keep one or the other. So you can also generate your dashboard report as well as your test report as well. So that's how easy it is, guys, to generate report with SeleniumBase. It comes pre-built, so you don't really have to do anything over here. You just pass in the right flag and the report will get generated for you. That's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to learn how we can do cross-browser testing as well as parallel testing with Selenium Python. So since we're using the SeleniumBase framework, doing cross-browser testing and parallel testing is extremely easy. All we need to do is just pass in the right command when we will be running our test. So let's take a look at how we can run test on Firefox. The first thing I'm going to do is just run the test just the way we do it regularly. So I'm going to do pytest, and here I'm going to try to run the shop test. So I'm going to do shop test. So it's basically this file over here. It's going to try to run this. Now, if I just hit enter, by default, it's going to run on Chrome. And this is how we have been doing it so far. But if I want to run it on Firefox, all I need to do is just pass in -- browser and then just say Firefox. And if I hit enter, it will start running a test in Firefox. So let's take a look at that. So as you can see, it's starting to run a test in Firefox. And this is the Firefox browser that it opened up. Alright, so our test finished running, and as you can see, this successfully passed. So to run our test on Firefox, all we had to do is just pass in this -- browser flag. So similarly, you can do it for other browsers as well. Let's say if you want to run it on IE or Edge, all you need to do is just pass in that, and then it will start running the test. So for example, if I need to run it on Edge, I can just do -- browser and then type in Edge over here. So it's going to run a test on Microsoft Edge. So there you go, it's running a test on Edge now. And once again, our test finished running and it successfully passed. So that's how easy it is to do cross-browser testing with SeleniumBase framework. Now, if you want to check how many browsers are available for you to run with SeleniumBase, all you have to do is just do -- browser, and if you just hit enter, it's going to give you a list of all the browsers that are supported. Well, all you can do is just maybe make a typo here. Let's say if I do -- browser test, it's going to tell me that these are the ones that are available. So here I have option to choose from all of these browsers. So Chrome, Edge, Firefox, we already looked at them. We have IE, Opera, Phantom.js, Safari, and we can also run it on Android, iPhone, iPad, or any remote browser as well. So depending on wherever you want to run your test, you can just pass in the right flag and it will start running tests for that particular browser. Alright, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is how we can run tests in parallel. So far we have been running a test sequentially, so one after another. But if you want to speed up our execution, we can run tests in parallel, and that is really easy to do with SeleniumBase. So all I'm going to do is just do pytest, and here I can, instead of running individual file, I will just simply say just do pytest and then pass in my browser, or I can even keep it Chrome by default, so I will just leave it with Chrome, and I'm going to do -n, and I'm going to do equals. After that, I can pass in how many instances I want to spin up. So let's say if I do 2, it's going to spin up 2 Chrome instances. If I do 3, it's going to spin up 3 Chrome instances. So depending on how fast your machine is, you can decide how many instances you want to spin up. So here I'm going to do spin up 3 instances, and then I'm going to hit enter. So as you can see, it's trying to spin up 3 instances. So we have the first one, second one, and the third one here. Right, so as you can see, this is the first Chrome browser it opened. I have the another one that opened over here, and the third one is over here. So it basically spin up 3 Chrome instances, and it's going to run the test in all 3 of them. So over here, it's running the test on my account. On the another one, it's running the test for shop page. And if I open up the another one, it's running the test for the contact page. So as you can see, for each different browser, it's opening up the test for a different particular file. So I'm just going to wait for this to finish, and then we're going to review our test. Okay, so our test finished running, and we have 4 passing and 3 failed. So the ones that are failed, those ones are expected because on purpose, we made some changes so that the test would fail. And this was done for our previous video, which is for the reporting video. And that is fine. But the key thing to remember is we were able to run our test in multiple instances. And due to that, we were able to speed up our test execution time. So let's say if you're running this test in your CI, you just need to make sure that your machine is powerful enough to be able to handle multiple instances that you're trying to run. So you can always try to run with, let's say, 2 or 3 instances and see if all your tests are stable. If everything still works, you can switch it up and move it a little bit to, let's say, 4 or 5. And then play around with that number based on the amount of tests you want to run. Okay, so we have looked at how we can do cross-browser testing by passing in the -- browser flag. We have also looked at how we can do parallel testing by passing in the -n flag. Now let's take a look at how we can run a test in a headless mode. Now once again, that is also really easy to do. So for that, what I'm going to do is just run one of the tests. So let's say our shop test. Now so far we have been running a test. It's spinning up a new browser, right? So it's opening up the browser. But let's say if you want to do it on a headless mode, what we can do is just pass in the headless flag here. So that way it's going to run the Chrome in headless mode. All right, there you go. So our test successfully passed. It didn't spin up any browser. Instead, it just ran our test in the headless mode. So typically in your CI, this is how you're going to do. If you want to run your test in any browser, you would pass in the browser flag. You can decide how many parallel tests you want to run, and then you can pass in the headless flag. So with that, your test will run comparatively a lot faster, as well as you can decide how many instances you want to run to by passing in that -n flag. So as you can see, guys, with Selenium Base, all of these things are already pre-baked and you don't really have to do any custom work. So this saves you a lot of time and you can focus on just writing tests instead of figuring out how to configure all of these things. Alright, so that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to finalize everything by running a test in Jenkins. First off, we will push our changes to GitHub and then we will set up a job in Jenkins. Make sure to stick till the end as we will also be integrating Jenkins with the JUnit reporter to see all of our test results. So before we get started, make sure to give this video a big like as that's how I know you guys are really enjoying my content, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more content like this. So let's get started. So I'm here in PyCharm, and the first thing we have to do is make sure that we have all the dependencies that we need. So we're going to store all the dependencies that we have installed so far in our virtual environment in a new file, and we're going to name that one requirements.txt. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do pip freeze, and then I would name my file requirements.txt. So this will take all the dependencies that we have installed and it will put it in the requirements.txt file. So let me hit enter here. Alright, as you can see, it created a new file called requirements.txt, and if I open that up, you can see that it has all the dependencies that we have installed in this project. So now that we have all our dependencies, what we're going to do is take our entire project and push that to GitHub. And from there, we're going to set up a new job in Jenkins and then point it to the GitHub project that we have created. So let's do that. So I'm going to head over to my GitHub. So over here, I'm going to create a new repository and I'm going to name this one SeleniumBase, and I can call this one test. So I will add in the description and stuff later on. For now, I'm just going to create a new repository. Alright, so I've pushed all of our changes to GitHub and I have this new repository created over here, which is SeleniumBase test. And here I have also created a new file called gitignore, and I just added the virtual environment asset and stuff basically that I don't need to push. I also ended up pushing the custom screenshot. We technically don't need to put that, so we can also put that in a gitignore, but I'm going to leave this one for now as it is. Now let's head over to Jenkins and set up our new project. So I already have Jenkins pulled up over here and it's running in localhost 8080. Now I'm going to add a link in the description below so that you can go ahead and set up your Jenkins and so that you can get it running on localhost 8080. So once you have Jenkins set up, just simply log in. So I'm going to log in with my credentials here and do sign in. This will, for you, most likely it will show all the projects that you have here. If you don't really have anything, it might probably show just empty. In my case, I have some other projects that I've already created. So that's what it's showing up over here. So now what I will do is just create a new project, or basically new job. So I'll click on new item. Here I'm going to name my job. So I will name this one, let's say SeleniumBase. Then I'm going to click on freestyle project and then do OK. So here now we have to configure a job. The first thing we're going to do is point it to our Git project. So I'm going to say this is going to be Git and the repository URL. So I'm just going to copy that from here. So this is my repository URL. I'll paste it here. I'm also going to select my credentials. Now in your case, if you don't really see anything over here, you can just add in your credentials. Just go to add Jenkins and then add in your username and password. So once that is done, you can point it over here. So I've already added my repository here as well as my credentials. So that's all we need to do in terms of setting up our source code management with Jenkins. So here, the branches I'm going to be building is master, so that is fine. I'm going to scroll down. So the next thing we're going to do is add in a build step. In my build step, you can see I have this custom Python builder over here. So I'm going to select that. So you might not see this. The reason for that is you're going to have to install a custom plugin called Shining Panda as part of your Jenkins setup. What I'm going to do is just go to dashboard. And here in manage Jenkins, you're going to have options for manage plugins. Just go over there And in your available option, you're going to see Shining Panda. So just search for Shining Panda over here. In my case, I've already installed this, so it's going to show up in my installed. Go over there and just search for Shining Panda. There you go. So this is the plugin that you need to install. So once this is installed, it will give you the Python support to be able to run your Python projects. So it's going to have your standard Python builder, a virtual environment builder, and these are all of the things we need to be able to run our Python project. So make sure to install this. You might need to restart Jenkins to get this fully configured. So once this is installed, you can proceed with the next steps. So in your build, you're going to see the custom Python builder option. In your home parameter, you need to pass in where the Python is installed in your machine. So if you want to find the path of where the Python is installed, you can pull up a terminal and here you can just search for where Python. And if it is configured properly, it will show it up over here. So here in my case, I can see it's right here. I'm just going to copy that and paste that over here. And then we're going to be using a shell over here so that it's fine. And then we're going to add in a commands of what exactly we need for this project. So in our case, the first thing we need to do is create our virtual environment. So I'm going to do Python. I'm going to do -m, vn, and then I'm going to name my virtual environment just env. And then we have to activate our virtual environment. So to activate it, I'm going to do call and then do .env. And then in our scripts, then do activate.bat. So what this will do is it will create my virtual environment and then it will activate it. So once my virtual environment is activated, I can go ahead and install all the dependencies. For that, I will do pip install and then do -r requirements.txt. So here I'm going in and installing all the dependencies that we have set up in our requirements.txt file. So once all the requirements are installed, technically SeleniumBase should also be installed as part of this project. So then we can use the SeleniumBase command. So I'm going to do sbase install and then install Chrome driver so that it will run the test on my Chrome driver. And I will pass in latest so that it's picking up the latest version. So finally, when all of that is done, we can start running a test. So the way I'm going to run a test is just by doing pytest. And also I'm going to pass in the headless flag so that it runs on headless mode. All right, so that's all we need to do in terms of setting up our project. So here what I did is we've created our virtual environment. We have activated our virtual environment and I've installed all the dependencies. And then I've also installed Chrome driver. And then we are running our test in a headless mode. So let's save this and then try to run a test and see if it works. Okay, so I've saved all of the changes. Now what we will do is click on the build now button to actually build our project. Let me click on this. And what this will do is trigger a new build here, as you can see. So I'm going to open that up. So here it's trying to clone all of my changes that we have in our repository. It's going to clone that locally over here. And now as you can see, it's trying to build a new virtual environment. So I'm just going to wait for all of this to finish. And once this is finished, we're going to review our results. All right, so our build finished running. And as you can see, the status over here, it says it's failure. And that is okay because we had some tests that were failing. So that's as expected. But if we scroll up, we can see all the test reports over here. So here I can see all the tests that ran. So it totally ran the 7 items. So basically it ran our cart file, contact file, home, shop, and upload files. So these are all the files that we had in our project. So it ran all of them. And then we can also see the log. So it's saying that, okay, here that there's the error message. It was expecting to be a different text. Instead, it got this one. And these are all the error messages that we were getting when we were running our test in PyCharm as well. So if I go back to SeleniumBase project, so over here, we can see a build result. So it says failed over here. So that's okay. Now what we're going to do is right now, we don't really have a way to see any kind of reports. So what we want to be able to do is instead of just going in here and taking a look at the console logs, we want it to be able to show us the reports right over here. So for that, with Jenkins, the most common reports that works is the JUnit report. So let's implement that with our Jenkins job over here. So I'm going to go back to configure. I'm going to go all the way down. So right here, we have the option to do post build actions over here. So I'm going to click on post build actions. And here I have an option to pick the report that I want. So in my case, I want the JUnit report. So I'm going to pick that one. So which is this published JUnit test result report. So I will click on that. Now keep in mind that if you do not see this JUnit option over there, that means you're going to have to install JUnit plugin in your Jenkins. So just the way we installed the plugin for this custom Python builder, you have to do the same thing for your JUnit too. So go to manage plugins and in the available option, just install the JUnit plugin. Once that is installed, you will be able to see this JUnit option right over here in your post build out actions. So here we need to pass in the report name, so where a report is going to be located. So in our case, a report is going to be in our root directory. So I'm just going to name this one report.xml. However, we haven't really generated this report yet. So to generate the report, we can pass the report flag over here in our pytest command. So right now we are running it headless. So what I'm going to do is add in the report flag here. So just the way we were running our HTML report, we're going to do the same thing with the JUnit too. So I'm going to do --JUnit-XML. And then I'm going to pass in where it needs to be printed out. So it's going to be report.xml. So in my root directory, it's going to create a new file called report.xml. And this is what we are passing it over here as well. So let me save this and try to run this and see if it would work and show us the JUnit report. So once again, I'm going to build my project here and I'm going to wait for this to be completed. Alright, so our build finished running, and as you can see, we have the number to build over here, which says filled over here, which is expected as well. But now if I go to this last build over here and click on that, we can see the test result right here. So it says that there are 3 failures, so those ones are expected. And if I go to test result right here, so now over here, I can see all of the tests that ran. So here are all the tests that it ran. We have a cart file, contact, homepage, shop page, and upload page. And as well as the ones that failed too. So we have all the failed tests here. We can see the ones that passed, the ones that skipped, and the total number of tests as well. Now, if I need to take a look at more details of what exactly happened for the tests that failed, I can go to, let's say, our contact page here. Now we can see that here it's actually telling me what was the error message and the stack trace of that particular error message. So here I know that at this line this failed, this was the actual error message, and this makes it really easy for me to debug my code now. So adding JUnit report actually really helps you drill down and understand what exactly is the error instead of just looking everything in your console log. So I can go back to my test results, and here I can do the same thing for the ones that passed as well. So let's say if I go there, I can see that this one passed, everything looks okay. And if I just go in there, we won't really see any log trace or anything. All it will do is just tell us that, oh, our test passed, and we're going to see a pass over there. Right here. There you go. So let me go back. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. To quickly review, what we did was first pushed all of our changes to GitHub. Then we created a new Jenkins job. And then we have connected that Jenkins to our GitHub project. And after that, we actually built our project in Jenkins. And then finally, we implemented the JUnit reporting. So if you run into any issues, guys, while setting this up, do let me know in the comments below so that I can help you out. Just one last thing, if you have been enjoying my videos, I would really appreciate it if you guys could support my work. And you can do that in a few easy ways. The easiest is you can subscribe to my channel and like and share my videos. And you can also go to automationbro.com and subscribe to my mailing list to get access to all my blog posts and the latest updates. And if you have the financial means, you can also support me via the Buy Me a Coffee website. And I will add the links for all of that in the description below. That's it for now, guys. I will see you all in the next video where I will do a quick wrap up of everything we have covered in this series. Hey, how's it going, everyone? So this is the final video of this series. And if you have made it this far, I'm extremely proud of you for sticking along with me. So we have covered quite a lot here and hope you learned some valuable things out of this series. Let's do a quick review of what we have covered so far, and make sure to stick till the end of this video as I will go over when you should consider using Selenium with Python framework over using any other frameworks that are out there. So we started off with our introduction where we learned about SeleniumBase Framework, which, as you guys know, is a web automation framework built with Python, PyTest, and WebDriver. And then we also looked into some of the advantages of using SeleniumBase Framework. So after our introduction to SeleniumBase, we installed all the necessary packages and dependencies required to get SeleniumBase working with our local project. And then we wrote our first test using SeleniumBase and Python. After that, we deep dived into the APIs of SeleniumBase and looked into the different features that it offers us. We also covered how to work with various elements and looked into setup and teardown method for optimizing our framework. So from there, we moved on to building our test framework. We began with learning page object model and how to implement page object model within our test. Then we also learned how we can stabilize our framework by learning different wait methods that are available to us. From there, we learned about error handling, reading logs, and taking screenshot on test failures, and then generating test report from all of that. Finally, we moved on to learning different ways on how we can run our test. We looked into cross-browser testing and parallel testing to speed up our test execution time. And at the end, we integrated all of that with GitHub and Jenkins and generated a report in JUnit. So once again guys, there's a lot that we covered here. And honestly, if you were able to get through all of these videos, then you will easily be able to crack through the interviews by explaining all the concepts that we have covered here. And also get a job as a Python Selenium automation engineer. Now let's talk about when you should use Selenium Base and when you probably shouldn't. So the answer is simple. If you have resources within the team that already knows Python, such as your QA team members or the development team members, or let's say if Python is one of your primary languages within the team and majority of you guys are comfortable using it, then I would highly recommend for you guys to going with the SeleniumBase framework. It will most likely be the perfect fit for you all if you're looking into the Selenium framework. Now I don't want you to pick the framework just because you know how to use it. Let's say you've watched the entire series, you know how to use SeleniumBase, but that's not the only reason I want you to pick this framework. The best way you can build a stable framework is by involving as many members of your team as possible. Now the opposite of this is if none of the team members knows Python, or no one in their company uses Python when building their projects, then that's your cue to go with some other languages or framework. It's as simple as that. So hope this helps you out. If you have any specific question to this series or this video, let me know in the comments below. That's all for this video guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, and don't forget to hit that bell icon. Thanks for watching guys. I will see you all in the next one.